Rebirth as a Russian tycoon. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Mercedes-Benz C230. A circular aiming lens appeared in front of Mavey, and the red dot in the center was aimed at a Mercedes-Benz luxury car 60 meters away, a silver Mercedes-Benz C230. He squinted his eyes and looked at the scene in front of him. At the same time, he felt that he was carrying a long cylindrical iron lump on his shoulder. Master, aim and pull the trigger, and you can fire. At this time, a middle-aged man in a black suit next to him said to him respectfully. The words spoken by the middle-aged man were in a language that Mavey had rarely heard, but for some reason, he could understand it. And the words spoken by Mavey were also similar to the language of the man. What did you say? He turned around subconsciously with the iron lump on his shoulder and asked the man. However, it would have been better if he hadn't turned around. This turn scared the middle-aged man next to him, and he hid aside in panic. No, master. Not in this direction. Seeing the middle-aged man's uneasy expression, Mavey couldn't help but take off the iron thing on his shoulder. However, at this moment, he realized. It turned out that what he had been carrying just now was actually a portable RPG rocket launcher that only appears in movies and documentaries. It was similar to the anti-tank gun in the movie. Oh my god, what's going on? If Mavey remembered correctly, he was riding a bicycle on the road a minute ago. But suddenly there was a loud noise behind him, and then a truck drove towards him out of control. Then when he opened his eyes again, he found himself inexplicably in this strange scene. Could it be? Am I traveling through time? Mavey, who often reads online novels, immediately thought of many reasons. But at this moment, Mavey suddenly felt a splitting headache. Many memories that did not belong to him rushed into his mind crazily. That feeling was like someone holding thousands of silver needles and constantly stabbing his brain. The pain made him look painful and sweat ran down his face. Master? Are you okay? The middle-aged man saw that Mavey was acting a little strange and didn't know what happened to him. Fortunately, the pain came quickly and went away quickly. After only a dozen seconds, it disappeared like smoke. Through the strange memories that just flooded in, Mavey found that he had indeed traveled through time. The time he traveled through was exactly 2000, which seemed to be a parallel world very similar to the Earth. And he also traveled through time to a second-generation Russian arms dealer. The name of this second-generation arms dealer is Mavey Ivanovich Mikoyan. Mavey is his own name, Ivanovich is his father's name, and Mikoyan is the family name. It is also a coincidence that this Russian Mavey Ivanovich Mikoyan is an orphan like Mavey. His parents died in a traffic accident 6 or 7 years ago. He left him a 50,000 square meter military factory. This military factory has about 600 employees, most of whom are old employees who worked with their parents after the privatization of Russian military factories in the 1990s. The main products are authorized AK-47s and machine guns. There are also military vehicle parts. I'm fine, just a little tired just now. Mavey waved his hand, indicating that he was fine. In order not to arouse the suspicion of the butler Ivan, Mavey waved his hand, bent down and picked up the portable RPG rocket launcher on the ground, ready to completely destroy the Mercedes-Benz C230 in the distance according to his original character. In order to preserve this spectacular moment, the butler also arranged a photographer to record the whole scene for the young master to appreciate later. Young master, aim and pull the trigger, then you can fire. Butler Ivan looked at Mavey with some trepidation, fearing that he would suddenly turn the muzzle towards him again. But this time, Mavey aimed very well, including the posture of carrying the rocket launcher, which was also very standard. He just needed to pull the trigger and launch the rocket launcher. Looking at the silver Mercedes-Benz in the aiming lens, Mavey swallowed nervously. These standard postures were all made by his efforts. But if he really wanted to blow up the Mercedes-Benz C230 in front of him, it would be a disaster. Mavey was not mentally prepared for such a crazy thing. After all, the Mercedes-Benz C230 in 2000 was sold for 600,000 or 700,000 yuan in China at the time. 600,000 or 700,000 yuan 18 years ago was equivalent to 10 million yuan later. It was too extravagant and wasteful to destroy it with just one shot. And the stray bullet also cost money. Gulp. Ma Wei swallowed another mouthful of saliva. Reason told him that it was really unnecessary to do so. But the desire in his heart to blow up the Mercedes-Benz C230 has been affecting his thoughts. It seemed that, if he didn't pull the trigger, this desire would always haunt him and harass him. Ma Wei knew that this desire should not belong to him. It was a desire left in the mind of the original owner. If he deliberately suppressed it and didn't satisfy it, it might become a mental illness or a demon. So Ma Wei gritted his teeth, then squinted his eyes, and once again confirmed the red dot on the aiming lens, aiming at the silver Mercedes-Benz 60 meters away. After everything was confirmed to be correct, Ma Wei pulled the trigger with tension and excitement. Just listen to the moment. Bang! A loud noise. Ma Wei felt his hands and shoulders holding the rocket launcher trembled obviously. He almost lost his grip on the RPG rocket launcher on his shoulder because of the amazing recoil. Although the RPG is designed to have no recoil, it is affected by gas friction and other recoil forces. As his body retreated, Ma Wei clearly saw the black grenade that was fired, drawing a beautiful long arc in the air with thick gunpowder smoke. Then it whistled and hit the silver Mercedes-Benz in the distance. Boom. There was another loud noise. The Mercedes-Benz C230, 60 meters away, was immediately blown into the air after being hit by the shell. And in the air, a fiery red flame broke out. The doors and window glass around were blown to pieces. The violent explosion swept the airwave and ruthlessly scraped Ma Wei's cheek. The airwave also carried the high heat generated by the explosion, which made Ma Wei feel the real scene in front of him again, not a dream or a movie. Everything happened so fast, almost in the blink of an eye. Ma Wei carried the rocket launcher with a trembling body, without moving. He looked at the broken Mercedes-Benz falling from the sky, which had now turned into a pile of scrap metal. Such a real and exciting experience made every cell in his body excited. "Master, you are really great. A perfect shot." The butler Ivan said flatteringly. Ma Wei put the rocket launcher on the ground, then wiped the sweat from his forehead without saying a word. The butler will arrange for the servants to clean up the wreckage of the Mercedes-Benz C230. All Ma Wei has to do is to return to the villa in the mountain villa under the escort of servants and bodyguards, and continue to be his dandy young master. Chapter to the life of a rich young master. "Master, please." Two burly Russian bodyguards, dressed in black suits and holding AK-47 automatic rifles, stood guard beside Ma Wei. If an emergency occurs, the two bodyguards will resolutely block bullets for Ma Wei. Even if they die, they must protect his safety. After all, Ma Wei's money on them is not spent in vain. Bodyguards like them belong to the private armed forces of the military factory. The hooligans on the street would never dare to provoke them. Even the Russian mafia organizations have to weigh their strength before taking action. After all, general military factories, whether private or state-owned, have considerable backgrounds. Those who dare to provoke those who do arms business must be very brave and do not want to live. With the bodyguard opening the door, Ma Wei got into his newly bought Rolls-Royce. The black Rolls-Royce body is majestic, and it makes people feel solemn and extraordinary at a glance. The driver, who had been waiting for a long time, was wearing a suit and white gloves, holding the steering wheel. He turned back and nodded respectfully to Ma Wei. "Master." "Yeah." Ma Wei sat in the back seat of the car. The leather seat of the Rolls-Royce Silver Angel made his back fit comfortably on the cushion, and he felt very comfortable. As the car door was closed from the outside by the bodyguard, the driver started the car and drove steadily towards the villa in the mountain resort. On the way, Ma Wei looked at the scenery along the way through the car window. The large tracts of birch forests in Russia were dyed with a reddish yellow. Through the reflection of the glass window, Ma Wei saw a strange and familiar handsome face, with deep eyes appearing on the glass. The high nose bridge, fair skin, coupled with Ma Wei's 1.85 meter strong body and his noble status, make Ma Wei look more dazzling than a star. Looking at himself, who was a little unfamiliar, Ma Wei rubbed his hair, not quite used to it. In his previous life, He was just an ordinary person. He didn't expect that he would be reborn in this life and become the second generation of arms dealers who own military factories. According to his memories of his previous life, Maweli, who often pays attention to the news, knows that the arms business is getting harder and harder every year. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the military industry has been on the decline. Even though his family is well off now, and he has a lot of money to squander. But in a few years, I'm afraid that the military factory left by his cheap parents will face bankruptcy. The wealth he owns will also be eaten up and slowly depleted. Ivan, how much money do I have in my bank account now? Thinking of this, Maweli asked the butler indifferently. Master, your deposit in Citibank is currently around $385 million. Butler Ivan thought for a while and replied. After hearing the butler's reply, Maweli held back his excitement and quietly clenched his fists. Such a large amount of assets sounds very exciting. And $385 million in 2000 is enough for him to do a lot of things. Maweli didn't have any special skills in his previous life. The only thing he had was a good memory. Almost everything he paid close attention to, he could remember many details very clearly. According to the memory of his previous life and the memory of the parallel world, the relationship between the United States and Russia in this world was pretty good, and it was a peaceful development. He would not be rejected if he went to the United States to invest with his identity. In the period of 2000, the most profitable industry was naturally the internet industry. Amazon, one of the 3 internet giants, did not have many things to operate online at that time. The net profit for the whole year of 1999 was only about $10 million, including Google, which was also one of the 3 giants. It was less than 2 years old at that time, and was still just a small and unknown company. As for Facebook, which was only established in 2004, there is no need to say more. It will take at least 5 or 6 years before it shines. So there is still a lot of time left for Maweli, which is enough for him to enter the internet industry and make a lot of money. Maweli does not plan to sell his military factory or mortgage it to the bank. Because he was influenced by the original owner, he has a different feeling for the military industry in his bones. If there is a chance, he even wants to make a large acquisition. For example, buy a few tanks and drive them out to fire a cannon. Buy a few armed helicopters and fly them out to blow up icebergs when they are bored. Such crazy ideas have always existed in his mind. Although the original owner of the body is no longer there, it is lingering. Master, we have arrived at the villa. At this time, the butler Ivan said to Maweli respectfully. Maweli looked out the window and saw the Rolls-Royce parked in front of a huge iron gate with carved patterns. Through the carved patterns on the black iron gate, Maweli could see a well-trimmed green garden not far away. When the suited bodyguard in the villa hurriedly came to open the iron gate, Maweli sat in the Rolls-Royce and watched the car slowly drive through the garden. Then it stopped in front of a pure white western villa. The design of the villa is a typical Nordic style. The towering white stone pillars, the finely carved ebony doors and windows, and the huge fountain built in front of it. All of them show the elegance and luxury of the villa owner. Maweli, who had lived to live, tried hard to control his inner turmoil. He listened to the sound of running water in the fountain, and then walked out of the car with a calm expression when the butler opened the door. He did not want anyone to notice anything unusual. Master, the chefs and servants are already in the hall, waiting for you. What would you like to eat for dinner? Butler Ivan respectfully accompanied Maweli to the villa's living room. In the hall with brilliant lights and walls, 2 French chefs wearing tall hats and white uniforms were standing in a row with the maids, ready to be dispatched by Maweli. Whether it was the French chef or the villa maid, everyone lowered their eyebrows and looked down at this time, so as not to make eye contact with Maweli, which would make Maweli unhappy or feel disrespected. Maweli took the menu from the butler and then followed the original tone and intonation to randomly select a few dishes that seemed to be pleasing to the eye. St. Jack's scallops, French lamb chops, pan-fried foie gras, and French steak. When he named the dishes, the French chef standing in front of him nodded slightly respectfully. Even if he didn't understand Russian, he had to pretend to understand it. Master, dessert and red wine, would you like some? Butler Ivan stood beside him and reminded Maweli softly. Oh, yes. There are also red wine and desserts. cheese souffle, caramel pudding, and Romanican tea from 1992. Maweli looked at the menu and added to the butler. The life of a super rich person is like a dream for him who has just been reborn and traveled through time, and it is difficult to adapt. Many details need to be paid special attention to, but fortunately, he is the head of the family, and no one dares to say anything, even if something goes wrong. Besides, he is the only one who knows about his rebirth and travel through time. Others cannot imagine such a supernatural phenomenon. Chapter 3 Future Planning. After Maweli ordered the meal, the chef and the servants left like a tide, busy preparing dinner for him. At this time, a beautiful, blonde and blue-eyed Russian maid came to Maweli with a bottle in her hand. The maid was wearing a black dress and sexy black stockings with suspenders, and walked towards Maweli with a charming smile on her face. She was very tall, and her pair of beautiful legs wrapped in stockings looked very tempting. Master Maweli, it's your turn to feed Winnie. The maid came to Maweli with a sweet smile, and then handed over the warm bottle of milk powder in her hand. Who is Winnie? Due to partial memory loss after crossing, Maweli couldn't remember who the Winnie in the maid's mouth was. It sounds like a girl from the name. Can it be his daughter? After hearing this, the maid was slightly stunned, and then hesitantly explained to Maweli, Master, Winnie is the little polar bear you bought 2 days ago. Have you forgotten so quickly? Little polar bear? Oh, yes. Maweli looked at the Russian maid in front of him, and then reached out to take the bottle of milk from her hand. Winnie, the polar bear, was bought by him 2 days ago. He is currently 2 months old, and is still breastfeeding. In order to cultivate feelings, Maweli feeds the little polar bear himself when he has time. The maid led Maweli to the room where the little polar bear was raised. The huge room was not only exquisitely decorated, but also had everything. For example, a small bed for the polar bear to sleep, plush toys for her to play with, and a separate bathroom for her. Maweli walked into the room with the bottle of milk. Winnie, who was lying on the bed, immediately raised his little head and then trotted towards Maweli like a frolic. He also made a coquettish sound of huffing from his mouth. Come and drink milk. Maweli shook the bottle in his hand, then bent down and took Winnie the little bear, who ran over and put her in his arms. The 2-month-old polar bear is already quite big. The furry white body is round like a snowball. She naively used her little paws to pull at Maweli's clothes, and her round black eyes kept staring at the milky white bottle that Maweli handed over. Badgie. When the pacifier was brought to Winnie, she immediately opened her mouth and held it impatiently, and then began to suck it mouthful by mouthful. Looking at the little polar bear in his arms, drinking milk comfortably, Maweli smiled and shook his head, thinking that this bear's life is better than that of a human. Not only does it live in such a comfortable room, but it is also taken care of 24 hours a day. After feeding the pet milk, Maweli stretched and prepared to go to the living room to enjoy dinner. However, at this time, Winnie, the little polar bear who had eaten and drunk enough, suddenly couldn't bear to leave him and kept following him. She followed Maweli staggeringly to the living room. The blonde maid beside him had a charming smile on her face. Maweli glanced at her, then motioned her to take the bear back to the room. Take Winnie back. Okay, Master Maweli. The maid nodded obediently, then bent down gently and picked up Winnie the bear on the floor. The maid's name was Anfia, and she was 17 years old. If Maweli remembered correctly, Anfia's father was seriously ill and spent all the family savings. So she had to drop out of school to work as a maid to supplement the family income. She has been working for a week, but a few days ago, because Maweli was busy, he was in Moscow. It was not until today that he had time to return to the villa and played with an RPG rocket launcher to blow up luxury cars. Seeing Anfia leaving gracefully with the bear, Maweli walked to the living room and waited for the maids to serve the French food prepared by the chef to the table one by one. Master, this is the St. Jack's scallops that the chef has just made. Please enjoy it. The maid brought the steaming hot and plump scallops from the kitchen. This is the appetizer of a French meal. The ingredients of St. Jack's scallops were specially sent by the chef from the St. Jack's region of France by air. The freight alone is very expensive. All this is to please Maweli. At the same time, the butler Ivan also took out a bottle of 1992 Romanican tea red wine from the underground wine cellar of the villa. Then he carefully opened the bottle for Mawei, and then poured the red wine into a special decanter to let the aroma of the wine fully evaporate and the sediment in the wine be fully separated. Mawei enjoyed the wonderful services around him and felt that the life of the rich was really great. Romanican tea, which costs thousands of dollars a bottle, is paired with delicious and juicy St. Jack's scallops, mouth-watering pan-fried foie gras, exquisite and delicious French lamb chops, and French steaks with a meaty aroma. Everything seemed like a dream. He couldn't help but pinch himself quietly. Hiss. Feeling the pain in his thigh, Mawei confirmed again that this was not a dream. So he picked up the red wine poured by the butler and took a sip. It must be said that Romanican tea, one of the top 10 red wine brands in the world, is different. Even an amateur like him can taste the rich and mellow wine aroma, which blooms layer by layer in his mouth. After enjoying a delicious dinner, Mawei returned to his room and turned on his laptop. In 2000, most computers still used Windows XP or Windows 2000. The computer startup speed was also abnormally slow. He waited for a long time before opening the browser and then checking the information about American internet companies. If I remember correctly, around March 2000, it was a time when the internet bubble reached its peak. Around the middle of the month, the stock prices of various internet companies will usher in the first round of collapse. Many companies that have been overvalued due to speculation will face elimination. Mawei looked at the date on the computer, March 3rd, 2000, 1935. So he asked the servant to call the butler Ivan and told him, Ivan, send someone to contact Amazon in the United States. Amazon in the United States? What is it about, young master? Ivan was slightly stunned, not knowing why Mawei wanted him to contact the American company. Investment. Mawei operated the computer and opened the Nasdaq stock market. The stock market composite index on March 3rd had reached 4856 points at the close. It was only 192 points away from the highest point of 5048 points in the bubble. Oh, okay, young master, I'll send someone to contact it right away. Although the butler Ivan didn't understand why Mawei wanted to invest in American companies, as a loyal servant, he would follow any instructions issued by Mawei meticulously. After simply arranging business matters, Mawei stretched and was almost ready to take a bath and rest. However, at this moment, a graceful figure entered his room with elegant manners. Master Mawei, it's getting late. Do you want to take a bath? I'll prepare hot water for you. Chapter 4 Tiger Armored Vehicle. As a maid, and Fierce Service is very thoughtful. She walked into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and filled the bathtub with hot water for Mawei. Listening to the sound of running water, which kept coming from the bathroom, Mawei tried to control his emotions so as not to reveal his true colors when he took a bath later. The reason why he was so serious was that from childhood to adulthood, this Russian rich boy had never taken care of his daily life by himself. In other words, when he took a bath later, the maiden Fia would undress him and then look at his naked body and wash him personally. This matter was commonplace for the Russian rich boy. But for Mawei, it was the first time. So it was inevitable that it would be a little embarrassing. Master, the hot water is ready. Do you want to take a bath now? After a while, the maiden Fia asked Mawei in a delicate voice. Ahem. Okay. Mawei coughed slightly and then followed the maid into the bathroom. In the spacious and bright, luxuriously decorated bathroom, an oversized white bathtub was exaggeratedly presented in the center. It looks at least 3 meters long and 2 meters wide. Compared to the 1.7 meters long and 0.8 meters wide bathtubs of ordinary people, it is more than 4 times larger. It is even as big as a small family swimming pool. Master, I will undress you. Yes. Namo Amitabha. During most of the bathing time, Mawei kept reciting Buddhist scriptures in his heart, and then he got through the difficulties safely. Master, I will blow dry your hair for you. After wiping his body and putting on pajamas, the maiden Fia picked up the hairdryer and carefully blew Mawei's hair. After finally getting to this point, Mawei thought that he had finally survived the test tonight. But he lost part of his memory because of his original owner. So I forgot that the biggest test tonight was not taking a bath, but late at night, after washing up, The maid in fear came to Marwen's room in pink pajamas. "Master, it's late. Are you ready to go to bed?" At this time, Marwen was still sitting in front of the computer studying the famous company in his previous life. "Oh, it's almost time." "Okay, master, then I'll warm your bed first." After Anfir finished speaking, she pursed her lips and turned around to close the door. The life of a rich young master is full of temptations. If you are not careful, you can easily get drunk in this colorful world and lose your mind. 10 minutes later, when Marwen lay in the quilt warmed by the maid, he suddenly made a decision. That is, in this life, he wants to live a wonderful life. And the most wonderful one. Otherwise, it would be a shame for this new life. "Master, good night." "Well, good night." A week later, Marwen, accompanied by his butler and bodyguard, took a Rolls-Royce to Moscow airport. Traveling like this is a basic operation for the rich. To put it bluntly, you need to bring a lot of bodyguards and drive a good car. But then again, one thing is very important, that is, the accompanying safety convoy is very particular. For example, Marwen's Rolls-Royce was followed by Santana, which must have lost its pomp in an instant. Therefore, the standard of the accompanying convoy must be at least Mercedes-Benz, Land Rover, or even Hummer. And the convoy that Marwen took out has nothing to do with the above three brands. Because the Tiger armored vehicle with the title of the king of Russian military vehicles is protecting the front and back of his Rolls-Royce. This military vehicle is not only cool in shape, but also daunting. And the heavy armor of the car can withstand attacks from light weapons and explosive devices. Some of its performance is stronger than the military Hummer. In the United States, military Hummers are difficult to buy. As for civilian Hummers, they are far less shocking than military ones. So when Marwen's Tiger armored convoy drove all the way to the airport, the Russians and foreign tourists in the terminal were all shocked by Marwen's shocking formation. The guy in the car must be some big shot in the military, right? This trip is so impressive. Oh my god. A Russian Tiger armored vehicle. It looks much more impressive than my boss's civilian Hummer H1. Chapter 5 Gulfstream G200. Marwen sat in the Rolls-Royce Silver Angel, looking through the glass at the tourists, who were watching his motorcade in the terminal. He remembered that in his last life, he was standing on the street like them, envious of the rich driving luxury cars, and hugging beautiful women. Now that his identity has changed, to be honest, Marwen is not quite used to it. Every time he woke up from the bed these 2 days, he would be in a trance for a while, before he was sure that he was not dreaming. At the Russian airport, Marwen has his own private plane and team. The place where the plane is parked is in another terminal, separated from the civil aviation. When the motorcade continued to move forward, it came to an empty apron. Marwen, sitting in the back seat of the car, saw a cool white plane parked steadily not far away. The private plane was one of the most luxurious business jets in 2000, the Gulfstream G200 twin-engine turbofan business jet. "Master, the plane is ready for you, and the captain and flight attendants are also in place." At this time, the butler arrived and said respectfully to Marwen, "HMM." Marwen stretched out his hand to rub his temple, and then walked out of the car as the butler opened the door. In the past, from the pictures on the internet, Marwen always felt that private jets were too small compared to civil aircraft. However, when he got off the car and stood in front of the G200 business jet, Marwen realized that his perception was wrong. With a fuselage of more than 20 meters long and a wingspan of more than 17 meters, the Tiger armored vehicle with a specification of 5.7 meters long is like a child in front of the Gulfstream G200. "Master Marwen, good afternoon." On the left side of the private plane's gangway, 2 Russian stewardesses with delicate features bowed to Marwen and greeted him. These 2 stewardesses were personally selected by Marwen. Both their figure and appearance are very outstanding, including the captain standing next to him. He is also the kind that is pleasing to the eye. "Good afternoon, Master Marwen." The white captain took off his white hat and saluted Marwen. "HMM." According to the original owner's personality, Marwen responded indifferently. This also happened to cover up the unfamiliar feeling brought by his first time on a business jet. The security check of private jets is just a routine procedure, not as strict as that of civil aviation. And there are no restrictions on luggage. Anyway, as long as you can fit it, you can take as much as you want. After all, the plane is yours. Under the escort of the bodyguards, Maweli boarded the plane step by step. The interior space of the G200 is very spacious, and the private customized interior decoration is so luxurious that it is amazing. In particular, the high specification customized leather seats use Maybach S-Class aviation seats that exceed the first class level. Each one is hand sewn, showing the local tyrant style from the details. Maweli chose a seat that he was satisfied with. Not long after, the uniformed Russian stewardess smiled and stretched out her bare hands to fasten his seatbelt. Almost 10 minutes later, Maweli felt that the G200 business jet under him began to move slowly. The runway of private aircraft is shared with civil aviation. Through the cockpit window of the G200, Maweli could see that the Boeing 747 passenger plane took off in front of them. Looking at the 747 passenger plane, the huge rear end and the huge fuselage, Maweli thought that if he had the ability in the future, he must buy an A380 and convert it into the most luxurious air hotel. This way, the trip would be more stylish and more stylish. The price of an A380 passenger plane was about $300 million in 2006. With Maweli's current financial strength, the deposit would be exhausted after buying the plane. So he needs to work harder to make money, and through his advantage of Rebirth, invest more in some future high value added companies. Only in this way can he have the capital to play. Speaking of investment, the meeting place that Amazon agreed with Maweli was in the old Amazon building. At that time, Amazon did not have the money to build a new office building worth $25.3 billion. So it was just the right time to invest. As for the date of the meeting, Maweli deliberately chose March 16th. That was the 5th day after the internet bubble burst. The reason for this choice is that when the industry is booming, every internet company thinks that it is invincible. Only when they hit a wall will they restrain their temper. It only takes a short time to fly from Moscow to Washington. Maweli slept comfortably on the plane. When he woke up, the plane was almost arriving at Dulles International Airport. Butler Ivan prepared the car at the airport and made an appointment with the hotel. Everything was waiting for the day of the negotiation. At 2 p.m. on March 16th, in front of an inconspicuous office building in Washington, a white foreigner wearing a navy blue plaid suit, thin and anxious, seemed to be waiting for someone. This white foreigner, named Jeff Bezos, is the founder of Amazon. At this time, he was standing downstairs with the company's senior executives, ready to welcome the upcoming investors. It is said that the investor came from Russia and his family was in the arms business. The reason why President Jeff Bezos mobilized so many troops, and it was for a Russian businessman. The reason is that the Amazon company in the parallel world is not developing rapidly. Due to the stock market crash and the bursting of the internet bubble, many funds that were originally invested in Amazon have withdrawn their investments. As a result, Amazon is now facing a tight cash flow and is on the verge of a financial crisis. This situation is not only happening in Amazon, but almost all internet companies in the United States have been hit hard. The more serious ones are about to face bankruptcy and closure. Boss, they seem to be coming. At this time, a male executive of the company pointed to the intersection in front of the left. President Jeff Bezos heard the sound and looked over, only to see 3 pure black Cadillacs driving in a row at the intersection in the distance. After about half a minute, 3 Cadillac luxury cars stopped smoothly in front of Jeff Bezos and others. Then, several sturdy Russian bodyguards suddenly walked out of the 2 cars in front and behind. Each bodyguard looks very tough, especially their serious faces, which make businessmen like Jeff Bezos feel nervous. When several Russian bodyguards in suits came to the Cadillac in the middle in an orderly formation. At this time, the car door opened, and a young white man wearing sunglasses came out of the car in a very stylish manner. "Hello. Is this Mr. Maweli?" Seeing this scene, CEO Jeff Bezos knew who the big shot who came out of the car was, even if he used his toes to think. So he immediately stepped forward with a smile, and took the initiative to stretch out his hands and shook hands with the young man. "Hello, Mr. Jeff." Maweli responded lightly. It must be said that he chose a good time for this negotiation. If it was a week earlier, it would definitely not be like this now. Almost all Amazon executives ran out to greet him. Chapter 6 Rounding Up. Mawey's English is pretty standard. After all, many foreign customers of the military factory communicate in English. Mr. Mawey, welcome. You must be exhausted on the way. Please come this way. Jeff Bezos smiled and led Mawey and others into the company building. The old site of Amazon's office building in 2000 is generally simple. It does not have the avant-garde and fashionable sense of internet companies. The same is true for the office. There are only 100 employees sitting in front of the flat screen monitors that are quite old, busy handling online business. The old-fashioned telephone rings from time to time make Mawey feel dazed. After all, these technological products from 2000 are really antiques in his eyes. Mr. Mawey, this is our Amazon business department. All online businesses in the United States will be gathered here and handled uniformly. Our Amazon company was founded in 1995 and only sold books online at the beginning. Now it has developed to this scale, all because of the rapid development of the internet. President Jeff Bezos could not understand the expression on Mawey's face. The only thing he wanted now was to hope that the Russian tycoon in front of him would generously invest in the company and help them. So he described the future of the internet to Mawey as much as possible. He hoped that this arms dealer could understand. Mawey certainly understood the truth. As a person who had experienced it in 2018, he understood it better than anyone else. At this time, Mawey nodded lightly and then asked Jeff Bezos, how was the company's profitability last year? Mr. Mawey, in 1999, our company's net profit was $9.81 million. These profits may not be significant at present, but Mr. Mawey, I believe that in 3 or 5 years, the company's profits will increase several times. Jeff Bezos said to Mawey with emotion. Before the negotiation, he had inquired about Mawey's identity. He knew that he was a Russian arms dealer worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So Jeff Bezos was also very worried about whether the company could attract Mawey's investment with the current profit and the arrival of the internet bubble crisis. Mr. Jeff, no one can guarantee what will happen in 3 to 5 years. Let's talk about the current situation. Based on the company's current profit of $9.81 million, plus the bubble crisis, how much money do you want me to invest? Mawey would not give money to others desperately right from the start. Otherwise, others would think that he was stupid and rich and easy to fool. Hearing Mawey's words hit the nail on the head, Jeff Bezos and a group of company executives present exchanged glances. At the same time, the expressions on their faces also dimmed a little. It feels that this negotiation may be like the previous 2 days, with nothing to show for it. To be honest, Mr. Mawey, you also know that our internet industry is an emerging industry, and its development prospects. No matter what the outcome is, as the president of the company, Jeff Bezos always has to give it a try when faced with an opportunity. He explained to Mawey in detail the development of Amazon and its future plans. And at the end, he said to Mawey with a very urgent look and tone, Mr. Mawey, do you think $18 million, this investment amount is acceptable to you? Our company really needs this money as support. If you are willing to invest, everything will be fine in terms of shares and profit dividends. Jeff Bezos was willing to go all out for the money. Instead of the company facing a crisis, it is better to give more profits to investors. Mawey was waiting for Jeff to say this. It's not that he doesn't know how to spend money, but the money must be spent on the right things. He can't be treated as an ATM and given as much as he wants. $18 million, it seems a bit too little, right? Mawey smiled and said to the president Jeff Bezos. As soon as he finished speaking, Jeff Bezos, who was standing in front of him, was stunned for a moment. The Amazon executives standing around him began to exchange glances one by one, and they all showed a little surprise. $18 million seems a little too little? What do you mean? What do you mean? President Jeff Bezos asked Mawey with some expectation and hesitation. I mean, how about making it an integer and investing $50 million in your company? Mawey looked at Jeff Bezos with a faint smile. It was really cool to show off by throwing money at people, but this money is not thrown in vain. The shares and dividends corresponding to $50 million will naturally rise. Otherwise, I won't invest a penny. Make it an integer. $50 million? President Jeff Bezos, who was still a little confused, stood there in a daze. He originally thought that Mavey meant to make an integer by making $18 million into 20 million. But what he never expected was, God knows that Mavey's way of making it an integer is actually this way. It simply refreshed his 3 views, including the Amazon executives standing around. They all looked at Mavey and President Jeff Bezos in surprise and daze. I have seen investors talk about investment, but I have never seen investors talk about investment like this. Good. That's really great. The $18 million investment that Jeff Bezos reported before was the maximum amount for the company to get through the difficult times. Now Mavey is willing to invest an additional $32 million, so there is really no problem. Including shares and dividends and benefits, Jeff Bezos will keep his promise and give the best treatment. After all, Mavey's money is life-saving money. It is completely different from other times. Happy cooperation. Mavey smiled and shook hands with Jeff Bezos. Happy cooperation. Jeff Bezos took a long breath and laughed. His mood today is like riding a roller coaster, up and down, very exciting. Mavey does not need to discuss the details of investment and shareholding in person. There are many talents under his command to help him do this. Now all Mavey has to do is wait until everything is negotiated, sign, and then pay. In this way, he can own the shares of the largest online e-commerce company in the United States in the future. The market value of this giant company can challenge Apple. On September 4, 2018, Amazon's market value exceeded $1 trillion. It became the second company in the United States with a market value of over $1 trillion. It is conceivable how valuable these shares that Mavey is about to purchase are. An investment of $50 million is in line with Jeff Bezos' psychological tolerance. If too much money is invested and the shareholding ratio is too large, even exceeding 51%, it means that Mavey has become the company's decision maker and bought the company. Any boss with a little business sense will not agree to this. What's more, it is Amazon, which will be the future. Mavey does not have to worry that he can't play a big company like Amazon as a foreigner. After all, the first controlling shareholder of powerful internet companies like Tencent and Alibaba are also foreigners. For example, Alibaba's largest shareholder is Japan's SoftBank. Tencent is South African newspaper. These examples clearly represent that in a society ruled by law, everything can be negotiated. Mavey's development strategy is to use American companies as an economic source to nourish his military industry in Russia. After all the details were settled, Mavey readily paid Amazon $50 million to help them through this difficult time. It has to be said that people in 2000 were relatively simple and direct. In short, they were easy to fool. There were no twists and turns like in later generations. Mavey was in a good mood after the business deal. He considered buying a house in Washington. Amazon's headquarters in the parallel world is in Washington, D.C., which would not only allow him to invest, but also prevent him from staying in a hotel every day in the future. So Mavey immediately called the butler Ivan to the room, and then asked him, Ivan, which is the most expensive mansion in Washington, D.C.? The butler thought carefully, and then answered respectfully and truthfully, it's the White House, young master. You. Mavey almost spit out a mouthful of blood after hearing this. It was his fault for not making his meaning clear. The White House is indeed the most expensive mansion in Washington. There is really nothing wrong with it. Chapter 7 Longwood Manor. Mavey reached out and brushed his forehead. The White House is the residence of the President of the United States. It is his official residence. No matter how rich you are, you can't buy it. Besides the White House, which is the most expensive mansion? Mavey patiently asked Ivan. That should be Bethesda, located in the northwest of Washington, D.C. I heard that there are very luxurious custom-made manors there, and it is also the place with the highest education level and per capita income in the United States. Ivan scratched his head. Fortunately, he happened to know the place Bethesda. Custom-made manors, it sounds like it's not bad. Let's set off tomorrow morning and go over there to take a look. Mavey gave orders directly. Okay, young master, then I will arrange the itinerary now. Butler Ivan is still efficient. This saved Mavey a lot of worry. When the butler left the room, Mavey couldn't help but sigh. In the past 2 days, He has been suppressing a restlessness in his heart, always thinking about destroying something with heavy weapons. It's a pity that he is in the United States, and it is illegal to carry heavy weapons. Therefore, Mawei couldn't be so stupid as to go against the law, so he had to continue to suppress this restlessness. The next morning, accompanied by his butler and bodyguard, Mawei took a Cadillac convoy and drove all the way to Bethesda. Bethesda is a small city with beautiful environment and charming natural scenery. She has a clear blue sky and crystal clear river water. It is known as one of the must-visit places for tourists to the United States. Many scenes in the city seem to be like pictures, so beautiful that people are fascinated. Such a beautiful environment has attracted many overseas people who want to buy houses or settle in the United States. However, Bethesda is listed as the second most suitable city to live by Forbes. Therefore, many wealthy people are willing to choose to buy houses here. Even if you don't live there on weekdays, it's also good to buy it and take a vacation occasionally. When the Cadillac convoy drove all the way to the Longwood Villa estate area in Bethesda, at this time, Ivan, who was sitting in the co-pilot seat, turned around and introduced to Mawei, "Master, this is the most luxurious residential area in Bethesda. These manor mansions in front of you are all tailor-made." Listening to the butler's introduction, Mawei turned his head to look at the picturesque villas and felt that the rich people in the United States really know how to enjoy. The design of these villas is so pleasing to the eye, with luxurious British style, romantic French style, charming Italian style, etc. "Master, the sales center of Longwood Manor is in front." Butler Ivan did his homework before coming, so Mawei didn't have to look around like a headless fly. When 3 pure black Cadillac luxury cars stopped in front of the Manor sales center. At this time, a blonde sales lady, wearing a suit skirt and black high heels, took the initiative to come out to greet. To sell a house in such a high-end luxury residential area, every salesperson must have an extraordinary vision, otherwise he can't keep up with the pace of the local tyrants. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to the Longwood Manor Sales Center. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Lisa. Nice to meet you." The perceptive female salesperson saw at a glance that Mawei was an important figure among this group of Russians. After all, a group of people were wearing suits, only Mawei was dressed casually. "Lisa, how much is one villa in your manor?" Mawei asked the female salesperson casually. "It's like this, sir. The luxury houses in our Longwood Manor are all tailor-made, and the average price of each house is about $1.2 million US. "Excuse me, sir, what is your budget for buying a house this time?" When the salesperson Lisa spoke, her blue eyes kept watching Mawei's expression. If Mawei's expression became awkward or embarrassed during the quotation process, then Lisa would roughly know the financial strength of this Russian guest. After she finished speaking, Mawei only nodded lightly. But what he said next suddenly scared Lisa. $1.2 million US? Then give me 10. Mawei said in a light tone in English. As soon as he finished speaking, the sales lady Lisa standing in front of him suddenly thought that she had heard it wrong and was obviously stunned for several seconds. Looking at the expression on her face at this moment, she was stunned by surprise, just like a frightened child. 10 buildings? Sir, you are not kidding, right? Lisa was so surprised that she couldn't speak. She stammered for a long time before she made her meaning clear. "Do you think I'm joking?" Mawei asked back with a smile. He bought 10 manors at a time, not just for his own residence. There is also the intention of investment. 2000 was just the time when real estate was booming. The price of a top-notch manor like Longwood could double in less than 2 years. By 2018, the price of each manor is conservatively estimated to be $20 million US. This real estate investment is at least 16.6 times the profit. Moreover, in the United States in 2000, it was very simple for overseas people to handle the house purchase procedures. There were not so many complicated procedures later. Mawei had plenty of money in his card, so it didn't matter if he spent 12 million. In a few days, he would go to Google to discuss the investment. The sales lady Lisa stared at Mawei for a long time in amazement, and then suddenly remembered something, and said to Mawei, "Well, sir, I will go to check the sales situation now. Why don't you come in with me?" Happiness came too suddenly, so Lisa's sales skills were no longer available. All she could think about now was to successfully trade these 10 manas worth 12 million US dollars. Then she would get a large reward. Maweli enjoyed the pleasure of spending money. The key point is that this is not strictly speaking consumption, but a very valuable investment. In order not to let the guests wait too long, Lisa led Maweli to sit on the sofa in the reception area and then hurriedly ran to the manager's office. Manager John. There is a guest outside. He wants to buy a villa in our manor. Please help me receive him. Manager John is a white fat man about 50 years old. His round figure fills up the fat grey suit. At first glance, he is the kind of person who has to breathe for half a day to climb the stairs. Speak slowly, don't be so anxious. John picked up the coffee in front of the desk and drank it leisurely. At this moment, he suddenly felt that Lisa was a little unsteady in doing things. After all, their Longwood Manor is one of the best luxury residential communities, and it is reasonable for guests to buy villas. However, just as Manager John was thinking this, Lisa came to the table and said to him in a terrifying way, Manager John. The guest outside said he wants to buy 10 of our manors. 10. Lisa deliberately repeated the number so that the manager would not think that he had heard it wrong, like she did just now. As soon as she finished speaking, John, who was only halfway through his coffee, suddenly spat out the coffee in his mouth with a puff sound. Instantly, the coffee was all over the desk. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, Sudden Operation. There were a few coffee foams, which splashed onto Lisa's legs and skirt, making the scene chaotic and embarrassing. Ahem. 10 manors? Where is that guest? Take me there. John didn't even bother to wipe the coffee off the table. He stood up quickly, wanting to meet the super rich guest. He's sitting in the reception area of the lobby now, manager. Lisa reached out and wiped the coffee off her legs, but couldn't wipe off the strong coffee aroma on her body. Take me there. When Manager John, led by the salesperson, came to the sofa area in the sales hall, John, wearing a fat suit, stood in front of Maweli with a smile on his face and said, Hello. I just heard the salesperson tell me that you want to buy our 10 manor villas. Any problem? Maweli sat on the soft sofa and asked calmly. There were several Russian bodyguards with serious expressions standing around him. Seeing this powerful formation, most people didn't dare to approach. No problem at all. I'll arrange for the designer to come over right away. Manager John replied quickly. With the participation and assistance of the sales manager, the process of purchasing the manor went very smoothly. Under the guidance of the designer, Maweli successively selected the design and decoration styles of 9 villas. For example, modern minimalist style, pastoral style, postmodern style, new Chinese style, Mediterranean style, etc. The reason why he chose 9 villas instead of 10 was that there were only 9 villas left in the Longwood Manor. It was impossible to meet Maweli's large demand. The designer spoke for more than 2 hours, and his mouth was dry and his throat was about to smoke. Fortunately, Maweli was also straightforward. After basically confirming the style and room type, he decided on it. Unlike some guests, they kept changing it, which was very troublesome. Mr. Maweli, based on the 9 room types and design styles you have selected, the total price of the 9 manors is estimated to be around 10 million US dollars. According to the agreement in the contract, you need to pay 50% of the amount first as a deposit. Do you want to pay by credit card or bank transfer? After everything was confirmed, the salesperson Lisa looked at Maweli with great anticipation, waiting for the final decision. By credit card, Maweli said, and motioned the butler to bring his bank card. At this time, the butler arrived and carefully took out a black bank card from his pocket. This card is a Centurion Black Gold card of the American General Bank. It is recognized by the world as the king of bank cards. Master, here. Maweli took the black card casually. According to his previous life memory, he remembered that the Centurion Black Gold card was made of titanium alloy. so the feeling of holding it in the hand was unexpectedly light, almost half the weight of iron. But it is extremely tough. The Centurion Black Gold card was first released in 1999, which was last year. Only wealthy people with a net worth of hundreds of millions of dollars are eligible to apply for this card. There is no upper limit on the credit limit of this card. Even if Mawey uses it to swipe the next plane or yacht, there will be no problem. It is the privilege and symbol of the super rich. Private jet rental, free test drive of brand name sports cars, tickets for heavyweight performances, and reservation of private rooms in top restaurants are all its exclusive privileges. Sales Lisa and manager John looked at the black card in Mawey's hand with envy. Then they handled the card swiping procedures for him with great respect. When all the procedures were completed, Mawey was ready to leave the sales center with his bodyguards. However, at this time, manager John suddenly remembered something and came to Mawey and then asked him with a smile on his face, "Hey, Mr. Mawey, I suddenly remembered something just now. It's one of my previous customers. He now has a well-decorated villa estate in his hands and is in urgent need of selling it. Do you think you are interested in learning about it?" Sales are like this, not letting go of any opportunity. Mawey originally didn't plan to buy a house that someone else had lived in, but at this moment, a very interesting idea suddenly came to his mind. So Mawey stopped and asked John with a little interest, "How much is it?" $980,000 US. "Mr. Mawey, the villa estate of my Japanese client is designed and decorated. This price can be said to be very favorable," John said, and quickly took out the photo of the client's villa from his laptop. It was designed in Japanese tatami style. After taking a rough look, Mawey just nodded, meaning that it was okay for the time being. "Mr. Mawey, if you are interested in the villa, I can take you to visit the site. It's very close to us. Since this is a consignment business, the commission is much higher." So John was also very excited when introducing the business. "No, just this. How long will it take for the original owner to come and sign the contract?" Mawey was not interested in the Japanese tatami style villa. The only thing he was interested in was to destroy it on the spot after buying the villa. Then he can find someone to design it again and build the villa manner that he likes. This idea is really crazy, but it also greatly satisfies Mawey's desire for destruction. When he heard that Mawey was rich, he said to buy it directly. Manager John was so happy that he couldn't wait to call the customer. After confirming the reply, he said to Mawey with a smile, "Sir, my client is doing business nearby, and he will probably be here in 15 minutes. Yeah." Mawey nodded after hearing it. Then he turned around and told the butler Ivan, "Go call a car crane with an iron bull on it." The crane and the big iron bull that Mawey mentioned are the house demolition operations that often appear in foreign cartoons. On the crane, hang an 800-pound iron bull and then directly hit the house. This scene feels super exciting just by imagining it. After hearing the instructions, the butler immediately knew that his young master was going to squander the family again. Anyway, luxury cars and mansions are all disposable items in the eyes of his young master. Either smash it or blow it up, just for fun. When John's a-B client, Ivanovich came to the door of the sales center in a solemn black Nissan President luxury car, Mawey met this Japanese man who was not very tall, but had sparkling eyes. The Nissan President he drove is Nissan's top luxury car, known as the Rolls-Royce of Japan. It is much more luxurious than its Infiniti and God of War GTR. Therefore, many presidents of chambers of commerce love this luxury car. When John saw Ivanovich walking into the hall, he immediately stepped forward and introduced him enthusiastically. "Hello, Mr. Ivanovich. Let me introduce you. This is Mr. Mawey. He is willing to pay $980,000 US to buy the manor villa from you." Chapter 9. Destroy the house if you don't agree. After listening to John's introduction, Ivanovich looked at Mawey carefully. Then he said to Mawey in a very unstandard English, "Hello, please take care of me." Mawey didn't want to look at his sarcasm. He signed the house transfer agreement directly and then swiped $980,000 US to complete the transaction. During the process, lawyers from both sides were present, so there would be basically no legal disputes. After everything was handled, Inoue showed a satisfied smile on his face, took out the spare key of the house from his briefcase, and prepared to hand it to Mawei. But at this time, outside the sales center building, there was a dull sound of wheel friction. The sound was very noisy, and it sounded like a heavy truck rolling over the road. "Master, the car is ready and it's outside," Butler Ivan said to Mawei at the right time. "Well, let's go now. Oh, by the way, Manager John, where is the Japanese-style villa in Longwood Manor?" Mawei asked John casually. Looking at the series of situations happening in front of him, Manager John always felt that something unexpected would happen. But he was completely confused about what it was. He didn't even dare to think about it. "Mr. Mawei, the finely decorated villa you bought is located in the southeast corner of our Longwood Manor. If you want to see it now, we are happy to show you the way," John and Sales Lisa said very attentively. After all, Mawei, who bought 10 manors, is a super big customer of their Longwood community. "Well, let's go," Mawei said, and walked out of the sales center with the bodyguards escorting him. Okay. John and Lisa patted their buttocks and followed Mawei out. However, just as the two walked out of the sales center and were about to drive Mawei to see the villa, Mawei did not get into his Cadillac. Instead, he got on the yellow crane truck parked diagonally opposite. "What's this? What's going on?" John and Lisa couldn't help but look at each other. They couldn't understand the situation at all, including Inoue, who walked out of the center later, also looked at the bright yellow truck crane with puzzled eyes. "Manager, you said that Mr. Mawei, he could not be." Sales Lisa did not dare to ask any more. She could not imagine what it would be like to see a villa manor with extremely exquisite decoration and costing hundreds of thousands of dollars being destroyed under an iron ball. This is really terrible and surprising. At this time, the manager John's mind was blank. He stared at the big black iron ball hanging on the crane in a daze. It was not until a long time later that he came to his senses and said hurriedly, or we can take the guests there first." So John and Lisa got into the blue Ford car one after another, and then the two drove Mawei and others to the Japanese villa that Mawei bought. Inoue, who witnessed everyone leaving, had an ominous premonition in his heart. He frowned, and his intuition told him that something very terrible was about to happen in the mansion, where he had lived for more than 2 years. Curious and anxious about the unknown, after thinking for a while, Inoue hurriedly drove to catch up with the convoy in front, wanting to see what would happen. However, when he drove the Nissan President to the Japanese-style villa he had sold, Mawei, who was sitting in the crane, was driving the 16-ton behemoth and rushing towards the exquisite iron gate outside the manor. There was a loud bang. The giant crane under Mawei easily crashed the black iron gate. At the same time, the 6 wheels of the car ruthlessly rolled over the iron gate, making it creak, and then the car drove straight into the manor. The heavy body of the crane made a loud noise, whether it was pressing on the road or the iron gate. The dust raised by the wheels made people cover their mouths and noses, fearing that they would inhale it into their lungs. The scene in front of me was too fast and too terrifying. This made Inoue in the presidential car almost drop his eyes out. For a moment, he even thought he was dreaming. Lisa and John, who also witnessed the shocking scene, sat in their seats in a daze, unable to say a word. They never thought that they would see such a shocking scene in their lifetime. It was just like a movie. Unbelievable. "Manager, he really wants to tear down the house. Should we drive in and follow him?" Lisa asked John with a trembling voice. She wanted to smoke a cigarette and calm down. Her fingers and lips were shaking, making her panic. "Go and have a look." John gritted his teeth, then started the Ford car and followed in. Such a rare scene. I'm afraid it will only happen once in this life. Watching the Ford car drive into the manor, Inoue in the Nissan presidential car held the steering wheel in great confusion. He wanted to keep up, but he didn't dare. The reason why he was so entangled was that Mawei demolished his former house and his former manor. Although the transaction was transferred, the memories and feelings of the past 2 years were not gone just like that. After struggling in the car for a while, Inoue couldn't help but sigh, and then he drove the Nissan President and slowly drove into the manor. The collapsed black iron gate was smashed into 2 pieces and fell to the ground. When the wheels passed over, Inoushianji could clearly feel the car shaking. In the manner, the green grass on both sides of the path that was originally trimmed flat now left 2 conspicuous wheel marks. Inoushianji felt that his heart was bleeding. But this is no longer his home. Even if it bleeds, it's useless. When Inoushianji drove his beloved car to the Japanese villa where he used to live, he saw that Maweli had told the driver to open the crane's boom. The main boom, which can reach up to 32 meters, slowly extended forward. At the front of it, there was an 800-pound metal iron bull hanging. The iron bull swayed and moved forward, and soon it was right above the Japanese-style villa. Inoushianji, who was sitting in the car, looked at the iron bull without daring to breathe. Lisa and John, who were also watching the current screen, also looked up with bated breath. The villa in front of them was an independent 3-story building with a construction area of about 600 square meters. It has 7 rooms, 4 halls, 6 bathrooms, 3 garages and a basement. The villa was carefully decorated at first glance, with a light-colored Japanese-style layout and a brown-based color tone, which was very Japanese. Chapter 10. Start to demolish the house. Let's get started. However, at this moment, following Mawei's order, the American worker who was operating the crane skillfully lowered the steel cable. This caused the iron bull that was originally suspended above the villa to suddenly fall down uncontrollably. Boom. There was a deafening noise. The 800-ton metal iron bull instantly smashed the roof of the villa. The amazing impact force shattered the bricks and wooden boards on the roof. Fragments flew everywhere and brought a cloud of dust. Oh my god. Lisa and John exclaimed at the same time. As salesmen, they naturally knew how expensive the villa in front of them was. The cost was at least nearly $300,000. $300,000 in 2000 was quite valuable. In other states, you can buy 2 or 3 villas. Just as Lisa and others were exclaiming in a low voice, the iron bull that hit the roof was pulled up again. It swayed to the sky above the villa, and then began to swing back and forth with the shaking of the crane arm. Mawei, who was in the crane, pointed to the gate of the villa in front of him, and said to the workers, "Smash that door." "Okay, boss." The American worker obeyed the order and immediately manipulated the iron bull to hit the gate of the villa fiercely. Bang! There was another earth-shaking noise. The round iron bull weighing 800 kilograms easily smashed the security door into pieces. And it also followed the inertia and ruthlessly rushed into the living room and the kitchen, and crashed everything that blocked it. This iron bull was originally used by workers to dismantle reinforced concrete buildings. Now it is used to dismantle wooden villas. It is like killing a chicken with a butcher knife. The scene is very violent. Inoushianji, who was sitting in the Nissan President car, had no idea at this moment. He looked at Hen and stared at the scene in front of him with a dull look. I just felt that Mawei was too scary. The finely decorated villa cost nearly $300,000, which was more expensive than the Nissan President he drove. It was all smashed in the blink of an eye. It was really scary that the rich were so willful. Lisa and John in the Ford car had the same idea as him. Although they were senior salesmen, they usually dealt with rich people. But Lisa and John swore to the sky that, since they were born, they had never seen someone like Mawei who smashed a mansion at a disagreement. A villa worth $300,000 was smashed like this. I made a big order of $10 million today, but the commission was less than 100,000. As the saying goes, people are more angry than others. In Lisa's eyes, a reward of $100,000 is a very valuable fortune. But in Mawei's eyes, even if it is tripled, $300,000, it is just a matter of an iron bull. In fact, what Lisa and others didn't know was that Mawei originally planned to use mortars to blow up the villa one by one. But in the United States, it is illegal for foreigners to possess firearms, not to mention heavy weapons like mortars. Mawei didn't want to be arrested by the Americans and imprisoned for 10 years. I heard that in prison, fair-skinned and tender-looking white-faced people like him would be picked up by soap every day. Everyone watched Mawei destroy the expensive Japanese-style villa piece by piece, one by one. And they watched for 15 minutes. During these 15 minutes, Inoushianji, Lisa, and John no longer had any thoughts. There was only deep shock and a memory that they would never forget. After venting his desire for destruction, Mavey was refreshed and took a Cadillac team back to the Pullman Hotel in downtown Washington. On the way, he opened his laptop and saw that the deposit in Citibank had changed from $385 million to $335 million. As for the almighty Centurion Black Gold card, it showed that he needed to repay $10.98 million. It's only been 2 days, and $385 million has become $330 million. Mavey couldn't help but sigh. The money was spent so quickly. In the blink of an eye, 15% of the deposit was spent. Investment companies need several years to ferment. Mavey always felt that in addition to spending money on long-term investment, maybe he should also do some short-term investment. Unfortunately, he didn't pay much attention to the US stock market in his previous life, and only roughly remembered the highest and lowest points. So he couldn't play short-term investment quickly and accurately, and could only wait for the market to fall to the bottom, buy the bottom and hold it. As for stock index futures, margin trading, buying long and selling short, their gamma play is very different from stocks. If you are not careful, you will lose even the principal. Unless you are a trader or a professional, it is easy to be bullish or bearish to suddenly grab the rebound and blow up your position. By then, there will be no money in the account, and it will be too late to cry. Master, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, on the top floor of the JW Marriott Hotel, President Jeff Bezos said he has prepared a grand welcome party for you. I hope you will come. At this time, Ivan, who was sitting in the co-pilot seat, turned back and whispered to Mavey. The JW Marriott Hotel is one of the top 5 hotels in Washington, D.C. It is located on Pennsylvania Avenue. It is close to famous buildings such as the National Mall, the National Theater, and the National Portrait Gallery. Oh, sure, I will attend on time then. Mavey leaned back in his seat and said with his eyes closed. He was exhausted today, especially the violent iron bull demolished the mansion just now. That scene made him unforgettable. Master, if you attend the party, are you going to buy a suitable suit tomorrow? The butler Ivan suggested in a low voice. Mavey usually doesn't like to wear suits. When he goes abroad to discuss business, he usually wears casual clothes and wears whatever is comfortable. Well, let's arrange it. Mavey closed his eyes and said casually. This was his first time attending a high society party, and he was not very clear about some details and links. To be honest, Mavey was afraid of making a fool of himself, especially during the ballroom dancing session at a Western party. If he stepped on or tripped his beautiful partner, the scene would be particularly embarrassing. The next afternoon, Mavey went to a custom suit shop called Kitten under the arrangement of his housekeeper. The shop was located in downtown Washington. The 2 most expensive suits in the shop cost between $30,000 and $50,000 US. The fabrics and designs of the suits are all from Naples, Italy. Each suit is hand sewn and has the essence of Italy. The tailor's sewing experience is no less than 30 years. Only in this way can the quality of the suit be guaranteed. Hello, sir. Welcome to Kitten. Is there anything I can do for you? When Mavey just entered the store, he saw a female salesperson in formal clothes who came up with a sweet smile and asked. Chapter 11, Partying. Mavey didn't want to spend too much time on buying suits. Considering future social occasions, he planned to buy several suits at one time so that he could change them. So, he asked the saleswoman directly, what are the most expensive suits in your store? If they are ready-made, I will take them all. As soon as the wealthy and powerful voice fell, the saleswoman standing in front of him suddenly brightened up and quickly replied, Sir, I heard that you mean to just take the ready-made ones, right? According to your height and body shape, we have 2 suits in our store that are more suitable for you. Do you want to try them? Yes. Mavey nodded casually. Then he walked into the fitting room under the guidance of the saleswoman and tried on the 2 Italian suits she brought one after another. Wow. Sir, this grey plaid suit looks so handsome on you. It can really reflect your noble temperament. The saleswoman was not fooling Mavey. Indeed, with Mavey's height of 1.85 meters, strong muscles, and handsome appearance, he is absolutely handsome in a suit. To sum it up in one sentence, he looks thin when dressed, but has muscles when undressed, and is full of handsomeness. After trying on clothes, Mavey asked the butler to pay with a card. 3 sets of handmade suits cost a total of $135,000 US. The styles are grey plaid, that shows the atmosphere, dark blue suit that is elegant and restrained, and khaki suit that is quite businesslike. After swiping the card and paying the money, Maweli walked out of the suit shop empty-handed. Anyway, as a young master, someone will naturally help him get the suit. He doesn't need to do it himself. The female salesperson looked at Maweli's back as he left in a chic manner and couldn't help but sigh with envy. Hey, if I could have a life like him, how nice it would be. At about 8 o'clock that night, one of the most luxurious hotels in Washington, JW Marriott Hotel, one after another, expensive luxury cars were parked downstairs of the hotel. Among them are pure black Mercedes-Benz S-Class sedans. There are also pure white Lincoln Town cars, pure silver Bentley Turbo R, black Cadillac Fleetwood. When these luxury cars are on the road, passers-by will turn their heads to look at them, and the owners sitting in the cars enjoy the attention from the outside world all the time. They are well-known figures in American society, and luxury cars are their personal symbols. Every car must have a driver, and driving by yourself will definitely lose your status. American celebrities who walked out of the luxury cars, men all wore expensive suits and bright brand leather shoes. Women wore backless dresses and low-cut evening gowns, dressed up gorgeously and brightly. They wore very expensive jewelry on their necks and wrists, for fear that others would not know their noble status. At 8:10 p.m., Maweli drove his Cadillac slowly into the underground parking garage of the Marriott Hotel. Tonight, Maweli was wearing that dark blue Italian suit, and in the lining pocket of the suit was the MP3 Walkman he bought some time ago. 2 pure white earphone wires extended from his pocket and connected to his ears. This gave Maweli an inexplicable sense of familiarity, as if he often listened to music like this when he went home from get-off work in his previous life. As soon as the car stopped, the burly Russian bodyguard immediately got out of the car and opened the door for him. "Master, we are here." "Well, you stay here." Maweli asked the bodyguard to wait for him in the garage and not to go up with him. After all, for a celebrity gathering like this, bodyguards are not suitable to enter and can only wait outside. "Okay, master." The Russian bodyguards automatically stepped aside and watched their young master walk to the garage elevator. The banquet hall on the top floor of the hotel is directly accessible by elevator. This can avoid celebrities of distinguished status from squeezing into the elevator with ordinary hotel guests. When Maweli came to the dedicated elevator room, at this time, a light green Aston Martin DB7 sports car drove into the underground garage very handsomely and stopped diagonally behind him. A few seconds later, the car door opened and a long-haired woman in a pure white off-shoulder evening dress, carrying her black bag, walked out of the car in a chic manner. Then, the woman closed the car door casually and then walked towards Maweli in a graceful manner. Ta-ta-ta-ta. The sound of the woman's high heels came from far away. The floral perfume on her body also floated on Maweli's nose. This long-haired woman looked about 20 years old. Her skin was whiter than the first snow, and her long flowing black hair made her delicate features more charming. Especially the sexy red lips and the beautiful eyes that moved people. People didn't want to look away after seeing them. They just wanted to keep staring. The woman came to Maweli with a noble temperament and waited with him for the slowly descending elevator. Her name was Jennifer Swift, the daughter of Marriott Hotel Group. Her father was the president of the group, worth billions of dollars. Her mother was the runner-up of Miss World. So Jennifer is naturally beautiful, with a very good temperament and figure. Maweli glanced at Jennifer and then waited for the elevator without thinking much. When the elevator went down to the second floor, Jennifer took the lead in stepping on high heels and stepped into the elevator. Then she pressed the top floor button casually. It is worth noting that Jennifer, as a rich girl, did not wear any jewelry on her neck and wrists. Even the black bag she was carrying was just a very ordinary brand. It was not a limited edition of a famous brand. It was as if she never cared about these things outside of her body. Maweli walked into the elevator one step later and then stood on the left side of the elevator with Jennifer one body away. As the elevator door slowly closed, Maweli could smell the floral perfume on Jennifer's body, which became more and more intoxicating and drilled into his nose, teasing his olfactory nerves. Mawey is not the kind of man who can't stand when he sees a beautiful woman. He has lived 2 lives, and he doesn't have the attribute of kneeling and licking women in his character. He was just standing in the elevator bored, thinking about the next 2 days. But at this moment, the Walkman in Mawey's suit pocket, for some unknown reason, suddenly started playing. The music played was an English song he loved in his previous life, called You Raise Me Up. This song was supposed to be sung by Westlife 5 years later, in 2005. But because Mawey didn't want to wait that long, he simply asked someone to perform the whole song, record it into audio, and then keep it privately. When the melodious and graceful song sounded from Mawey's Walkman not long ago, Jennifer, who was standing aside and was also bored, suddenly turned her face with a hint of curiosity and looked at Mawey seriously. Chapter 12 Celebrities Gathering. From her eyes, it is obvious that Jennifer cares a lot about Mawey's MP3 songs. After all, Jennifer, who dreams of becoming a music producer, is very sensitive to melody and rhythm. The song You Raise Me Up in Mawey's Walkman is a melody that Jennifer has never heard before, and the key is that it is very nice. Although Jennifer pays close attention to Mawey's songs, she quietly buries this attention in her heart due to the reserve and self-esteem of a rich girl. She did not ask Mawey about the origin of his songs. Jennifer does not like luxury jewelry or brand name bags. She only likes music creation and immersing herself in the world of music. A rich girl like her who bravely pursues her dreams can be summed up in one sentence: if she fails to pursue her dreams, she can only go back to inherit hundreds of millions of assets. When the elevator reached the top floor of the hotel, Jennifer walked out first in high heels. Only a faint fragrance and a beautiful figure were left, which made people imagine. Mawey stepped out of the elevator one step later, and then he walked along the red carpet to the entrance of the banquet hall. At this time, Jennifer, who was walking in front, was elegantly holding a golden fountain pen and signing on the sign-in book. Her handwriting was very beautiful, just like her appearance, and her handwriting was like her. When Mawey approached and was about to sign in, Jennifer, who had just written her name, suddenly handed the pen in her hand to Mawey in a friendly manner. "Here you go." "Thank you." Mawey reached out to take the pen, and the golden pen body still retained Jennifer's body temperature. "You're welcome." Jennifer curved her red lips and showed a charming smile. Then, without any hesitation, she turned around and walked straight to the banquet hall. Mawey held the golden fountain pen in his hand, and he didn't know what he was thinking. He signed his name casually and then entered the banquet hall under the guidance of the receptionist. The banquet hall on the top floor of the Marriott Hotel was decorated very luxuriously. The magnificent crystal chandelier illuminated the entire hall with golden light. There were foreign men and women dressed in fancy clothes everywhere, with confident and noble smiles on their faces. Hotel waiters holding trays, carrying red wine and desserts, shuffled among the foreigners. As long as someone raised their hands to signal, they would serve them with extraordinary respect. "Mr. Mawey, good evening. You are finally here. Is there no traffic jam on the road?" Mawey just stepped into the hall and saw Jeff Bezos, the president of Amazon, wearing a black suit and smiling forward to greet him. "Good evening, Mr. Jeff." Mawey showed his signature smile. With his appearance, many celebrities in the banquet hall cast their eyes on him. Many celebrities present knew that this party was held by Amazon to welcome Mawey. At the same time, it also intended to tell the group of investors outside that their Amazon company could successfully survive this internet bubble crisis. Seeing that the protagonist of the party finally arrived, President Jeff Bezos enthusiastically took Mawey to the podium in the banquet hall, ready to introduce him to everyone. Ahem. "Dear ladies and gentlemen, please be quiet. We are glad that you all came to attend this party held by our Amazon company." President Jeff Bezos walked to the front of the stage with a microphone and then began to speak with ease. As a public figure, he was not afraid of the stage at all. He spoke with witty remarks, which livened up the atmosphere. During the speech, Jeff Bezos also praised Mawey and thanked him for saving the company. Some foreigners in the audience became very interested in Mawey. "Well, after saying so much, I think everyone in the audience is almost tired of listening to my opening remarks. Now, I will introduce to you Mr. Mawey, the new shareholder of our Amazon company." Please welcome Mr. Maweli to the stage with warm applause. As soon as Jeff Beth finished speaking, the male and female celebrities standing in the audience, as well as the senior executives of Amazon, raised their hands and applauded Maweli. Pa 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 pa. The sound of pa. So as soon as he finished speaking, there was warm applause from the audience. This was people's response to him, and also a respect for him. Maweli looked at those American celebrities who were applauding and smiling at him, and suddenly felt that he was really capable in this life. But he would not be complacent or feel ecstatic because of this. Because he knew that all these things in front of him were just bubbles. In the world of the rich, only success will receive flowers and applause. Once you encounter failure, those who smiled at you and treated you as a brother may immediately turn their faces and ignore you. When Maweli was bathed in applause and returned to the stage. At this time, a blonde woman in a black velvet evening dress nearby said to him with a smile, "Mr. Maweli, your speech just now was very wonderful. By the way, I would like to ask you, can I have the honor of dancing with you later?" The blonde woman who invited him to dance was wearing precious jewelry and a relatively thick smoky makeup. She was very interested in Maweli. After all, a handsome bachelor like Maweli is the object of admiration of women. As for dancing, Maweli actually wanted to refuse in his heart. He was really unfamiliar with ballroom dancing. But generally speaking, in occasions like this, only women can refuse men's invitations. Men should not refuse women, otherwise they will be labeled as impolite and disrespectful to women. However, just when he was struggling with whether to refuse or accept, a white figure came to Maweli with elegance. Then she said to the woman to help him out, "I'm sorry, he is my dance partner." Chapter 13. A song triggered. The white figure who stepped forward to help was none other than Jennifer Swift, the daughter of Marriott Hotel Group, who was in the same elevator with Maweli. The blonde saw that Maweli was already taken, and the other party was much more noble than her, the daughter of Marriott Group. So she immediately forced a smile and found an excuse to leave this embarrassing place quickly. Maweli looked at Jennifer in confusion. Logically, given her background, she should not be attracted by his wealth. After all, what Maweli has, Jennifer also has, even more than him. So it can be concluded that such active approach is mostly not related to money, but something else. But, what is it? Maweli was a little confused. Just as Maweli was thinking, Jennifer came to his side, smiled beautifully and asked him, "Do you want to go out for a walk? It's too stuffy here." Jennifer didn't like such social occasions very much, and she didn't plan to come today. But because her parents were not available, she was the only one who had time to attend the party. That's why Jennifer came over reluctantly. However, what she didn't expect was the chance encounter in the elevator and the melodious song in the Walkman. Jennifer, who loves music creation, has always wanted to find an opportunity to ask Maweli what the song is called and who wrote it. Seeing a rich girl asking him to go out for a walk, Maweli naturally had no reason to refuse. So he nodded, and then under the eyes of the people around him, he and Jennifer left the banquet hall leisurely. Then they came to a floor-to-ceiling window with a beautiful night view. Maweli would not be so self-indulgent as to think that Jennifer liked him. After all, this was the first time they met, and they didn't talk much. So he simply stopped thinking about it and just admired the night outside the window. Anyway, all this was initiated by the other party, so it would be better for him to wait and see. Jennifer, who was standing next to him, saw Maweli enjoying the scenery calmly, so she looked at him again with curiosity. From childhood to adulthood, there were countless playboys who pursued Jennifer. There are several football teams of handsome and rich men who have pursued her. But Jennifer is not interested in handsome men, and she also ignores the rich boys. There was even a stubborn second-generation rich man who pursued her for more than half a year. Jennifer was too lazy to look at him, let alone go out for a meal, go shopping, etc. The two stood in front of the French window, silently admiring the scenery outside the window. It was not until a long time later that Jennifer finally couldn't help her curiosity and turned to Maweli and asked, "Can you play the song in your MP3 so that I can listen to it again?" Maweli turned his cheek and realized that after all this time, the other party was attracted by his MP3. Sure. Mavey naturally took out the Walkman from his suit and then played the song You Raise Me Up that he had someone record. 2000 was the year when the Walkman became popular. When the beautiful and pleasant song melody continued to come out of the MP3, Mavey saw Jennifer listening beside him, and his expression became extremely focused and serious. Her beautiful and delicate face was particularly attractive under the bright lights on the ceiling. Her pursed lips and eyes flickering with the music became particularly blurred and beautiful against the backdrop of the night outside the window. Mavey quietly admired this beauty. He could not say that he liked it or was moved by it. He just admired the beauty. Jennifer, who was standing next to him, focused all her attention on Mavey's song. She had never heard such a beautiful melody and such touching lyrics. The more Jennifer listened, the more fascinated she became, and the more she liked it. After listening to the whole song, Jennifer pursed her lips with an unsatisfied feeling, and then asked Mavey, "What's the name of this song?" "You Raise Me Up." Mavey answered truthfully. "What a good name. Who sings it? I don't think I've ever heard it before." Jennifer asked Mavey with great interest. He got a hint of creative inspiration from the music just now. Mavey would not say shamelessly that this was his creation. He was just a porter of the times and had no ability to create such an excellent song. Even if the whole song was actually sung by him, he would not shamelessly admit it. Do you like it? In the previous life, Mavey liked music, but his voice was not good, and he could not sing in tune. In this life, he was born with a good voice, so even the high notes of the song, he could perfectly digest it. Well, Jennifer admitted with her head down. Suddenly, she felt a trace of indescribable subtle feelings in her heart, looming in her heart. This subtle feeling was something Jennifer had never experienced before, so it was very strange to her. I remember last year, a wealthy businessman said he would give her a luxury yacht and a luxury villa, but Jennifer refused without even thinking about it, and the music that Mavey casually let her listen to made Jennifer like it sincerely. Even when the party was over, Jennifer drove her Aston Martin DB7 and left the hotel. What she thought about all the way was the song You Raise Me Up that Mavey played for her, including before going to bed at night. Jennifer was lying on the bed in her pajamas, and the melody kept echoing in her ears. Women are sometimes such magical animals. If these scenes were seen by the wealthy businessmen who wanted to give her luxury cars and mansions, most of them would probably spit out blood in depression. In serious cases, they might even get depressed and have a heart disease, and they might not even have an appetite for food. Today's song is really nice. Let's go out for dinner together some other day. Good night. Before going to bed, Jennifer sent a text message to Mavey. At this time, Mavey had already been lying on the bed and sleeping soundly. As for the Motorola mobile phone that received the text message, he threw it on the sofa, and it is estimated that he will not see it until he wakes up tomorrow. The 10 manors that Mavey bought and long would have been under construction by construction teams in the past 2 days. It is expected that half of them will be completed in about 3 months. For things like decorating villas, Mavey does not need to watch them personally. Just hand them over to a dedicated person for management. What he needs to do now is to invest some of the US dollars in the bank card. For example, this Wednesday afternoon, Mavey will meet with the 2 CEOs of Google, the future world's largest search engine company, to discuss investment and shareholding matters. Chapter 14 Ferrari F50. Google was founded in September 1998, and it was exactly 1.5 years until March 2000. At that time, it was just a little known company located in California, USA. The company's market value was less than $700,000. It was just a small company founded by a few Stanford University students. In the second half of 1999, the 2 student CEOs who founded Google intended to sell Google to Excite for $1 million US. But the interesting thing is that the CEO of Excite thought Google was too expensive. Even if the offer of $1 million US was reduced to $750,000 US, he would not buy it. In the end, Google conquered the world, but Excite filed for bankruptcy after the internet bubble burst. The above incident once again proved that the time period for Mavey's rebirth was very good. The internet giant Google, which will have market value of $900 billion US in the future, is now only sold for $1 million US. For Mavey, this $1 million is like a sneeze, and an iron ball is gone. To sum it up simply, $1 million won't buy him a loss, $1 million won't buy him a scam. At 4 p.m. on Wednesday, at Washington Dulles International Airport, two American men wearing cheap suits and dragging heavy suitcases walked out of the airport terminal, looking around. These two American men are Larry Pages and Sergey Marbury, who founded the Google search engine. Both are graduates of Stanford University. They are now 27 and 26 years old, respectively. Larry, are those two black cars in front of us here to pick us up? When the two walked outside the terminal, Sergey, who was wearing a gray suit, pointed to two Cadillacs not far away and asked Larry. Larry, who was wearing a burgundy old-fashioned suit, squinted his eyes and replied uncertainly, "I don't know." The phone said that a car would come to the airport to pick us up, but it shouldn't be such a good car, right? It's not a joke to say that Larry and Sergey are just college students who have just graduated for 2 years and have not seen much of the world. Although the company's market value is hundreds of thousands of dollars, neither of them has spent much money to enjoy it. Instead, they use the money they had worked so hard to raise to buy a lot of network facilities, internet equipment, etc. However, just as the two were discussing in a low voice, they saw 3 or 4 bodyguards in black clothes get out of the two Cadillacs not far away and walk straight towards the two. Among the bodyguards, there was also a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 50s, wearing a refined gray suit, which was in sharp contrast with Larry and Sergey. "Excuse me, are you the founders of Google, Mr. Larry and Mr. Sergey?" The middle-aged man came to the two with his bodyguards and asked. Yes, we are. "Excuse me, are you that Mr. Mavey?" Seeing this, Sergey and Larry instinctively thought that this middle-aged man was Mavey Ivanovich Mikoyan, who was going to invest in their company. After hearing what the two said, the middle-aged man standing in front of them stretched out his hands and shook his hands desperately. No, that's my young master. I'm the butler he sent to pick you up." The one who shook his hands desperately was naturally the butler Ivan. The mistake just now really scared him. Fortunately, the young master Mavey was not present, otherwise he would be miserable. The butler sent. "Wow. Are those two Cadillacs also sent to pick us up?" Shagaya asked Ivan cautiously. Cadillac is his dream car, so Shagaya paid special attention to it from the beginning. Larry, the company partner standing next to him, couldn't help but look at him with shame. The meaning in his eyes was obviously saying, "Aren't you asking too much? The car has already driven to the airport, otherwise why would you ask us to take a taxi?" However, when Larry was signaling with his eyes like this, Ivan, the butler, smiled and shook his head and said, "No, sir, my young master has prepared a little surprise for you too. The red car is sent to pick you up," Ivan said, pointing to the red car behind the Cadillac. When Larry and Shegul looked in the direction of his finger, they saw a fiery red Ferrari F50 sports car. It was parked in the distance. This sudden reversal made Larry and Shegul open their mouths and look at each other in surprise. Then Larry rubbed his eyes to confirm whether he was dazzled or not. "Oh my god. It's a Ferrari F50, a dream car. Are we really going to take this car?" Facing the two people's surprised questions, the butler Ivan smiled patiently and said, "Yes, sir. However, this Ferrari F50 sports car has only 2 seats. So I would like to trouble you two to discuss who will drive it." Ivan took out the Ferrari car key from his pocket and placed it in front of the two people. Sergey and Larry, looking at the car key with the silver Mustang on it, couldn't help but stretch out their hands at the same time, both wanting to get the chance to drive this dream sports car. "Let me drive. I'm a better driver than you." No, you just said you were tired. "Let me drive." The two people argued with each other, and the Russian bodyguards in front of them shook their heads secretly. "I thought you better stop fighting. After a while, our young master will smash this sports car. Well, burn it or blow it up. Anyway, we have seen it many times. The original Russian Mavey likes to destroy. He buys 2 or 3 sports cars at a time. Then he keeps one for collection and smashes, blows up, or dismantles the other. After all, he has a lot of money and can be willful, and no one can control him." Larry and Sergey didn't know about the bodyguard's psychological activities. In the end, they decided to drive half of the way. After all, driving a Ferrari sports car is every man's dream, and this cannot be easily compromised. So, escorted by two Cadillacs in front and behind, Larry and Sergey drove the Ferrari F50 and slowly got on the road. Along the way, the two drove very carefully, for fear of knocking or crashing the Ferrari, and then paying a lot of money. You have to know that Marwen's dream supercar is more expensive than their 80% stake in Google. This is not a joke. An hour later, downstairs of the Pullman Hotel in Washington, Google CEO Sergey and Larry reluctantly stepped out of the Ferrari. In this hour, the two of them had fully enjoyed being rich. Not only did they attract countless passers-by to watch, but even the luxury cars on the road, such as Lexus and BMW, carefully avoided their convoy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, The DOC Meets the Rich. Larry, the life of a rich man is so comfortable. When can we be so rich? How great it would be. Shagaya recalled the feeling of driving a sports car just now. At this time, Larry, who was walking beside him, shook his head and said, I don't know, but when you see Mr. Marweni later, you must not talk nonsense, understand? Well, of course. Shagaya answered with a guarantee. After Marweni's hospitality, although Larry and Shagaya have not met him yet, they have already had a very good impression of Marweni. It's not even an exaggeration to say that they are almost worshipping him for being so rich. 5 minutes later, in the high-end restaurant on the top floor of the Pullman Hotel, Larry and Shagaya, led by the butler, walked into the restaurant one after another, each dragging a suitcase. The old-fashioned suits they wore were very consistent with the image of id men. The neatly tied ties made the two feel like they were here for an interview, rather than talking about business. Is this restaurant closed? Why is there no one here? Shagaya looked at the time on his watch. It was almost 6 p.m. Logically, this should be the time when restaurants are most popular, especially for a 5-star hotel like Pullman. It's like this, Mr. Shagaya. This Western restaurant on the top floor of the hotel has been booked by our young master tonight. Butler Ivan patiently explained to Shagaya. If Marweni hadn't told him not to neglect his two guests before coming, Ivan, the butler, really didn't want to answer such an obvious question. Oh, so that's the case. Haha. Shagaya smiled awkwardly with sudden realization. At the age of 26, he didn't have the calmness and sophistication of later generations. To put it bluntly, he was just a fledgling entrepreneur. Larry, who was walking beside him, calmly pulled his suit, signaling Shagaya to be more stable and not to embarrass himself everywhere, as if he had never seen the world. However, just as Larry was signaling like this, suddenly, the tables in the outermost circle of the restaurant actually slowly rotated in a clockwise direction at a speed visible to the naked eye. Larry couldn't help but wipe his eyes, thinking that he was tired from the journey and was a little dazzled. But when he rubbed his eyes and looked carefully at the outer circle of the restaurant again, he only saw the round tables with white tablecloths hanging on them, which were clearly moving. Hey, Shagaya, what's going on with this restaurant? Why do I feel like it's moving? Larry asked Shagaya quietly. But who knew that at this time? Shagaya rolled his eyes and said, this is a revolving restaurant. Of course it will move. Didn't you notice the name of the restaurant when you came in? Faced with Shagaya's question on the spot, Larry's old face suddenly blushed, and he felt that he had nothing to say. He was only 1 year older than Shagaya, but he always pretended to be very mature and sophisticated. So it's a revolving restaurant. Damn, why didn't I see the sign? Larry walked in the revolving restaurant with great embarrassment. It only takes 45 minutes for the restaurant to rotate once. As for the rotating part, only the outer ring and the central large cylinder rotate, not the entire restaurant. Half a minute later, the two, led by the butler Ivan, came to a table at the back of the restaurant. At this time, the butler Ivan came to a white young man in plain clothes and said to him respectfully, Master, Larry and Mr. Shagaya are here for you. Well, thank you for your hard work. The white young man smiled slightly and then stood up from the table. Larry and Shegia, who were wearing suits, saw the young man walking towards them leisurely. To be honest, they were a little nervous, even though their average age was 6 years older than the young man. "Hello, Mr. Mawey." Larry stumbled to greet Mawey. The smile on his face became a little stiff because of nervousness. "Hello, please sit down, both of you." Mawey generously asked Larry and Shegia to sit down. Then the manager, chef, and all the waiters of the revolving restaurant lined up in front of Mawey. "Mr. Mawey, this is the menu of our restaurant. You can take a look. Let me introduce you to these two chefs of our restaurant." The restaurant manager in a black suit introduced Mawey respectfully and enthusiastically. Larry and Shegia, who had just sat down at the table, were secretly amazed. They thought that the life of the rich was so cool. Not only did they go to a high-end restaurant to eat, but they also booked the entire restaurant. It was so enjoyable to let the chefs and waiters serve only for themselves. Mawey took the menu handed over by the restaurant manager with both hands, and then said to Larry and Shegia, who also took the menu, "Whatever you want to eat, just order it. Don't be polite." Okay. Yes. Larry and Shegia nodded obediently. This scene made Mawey, who was sitting at the table, really laugh and cry. You have to know that these two people in front of him are the CEOs of a company with a market value of 900 billion in the future. Such a powerful person could walk out with his nose in the air. But now he is like a good kid, timid in front of me. This is really incredible. We want one, black pepper steak medium rare, cream corn soup, apple roll. Larry and Shegia, although they are the company's bosses, due to the hardships of starting a business, the money earned in the early stage must be reinvested in the operation of the company. So in the past year and a half, the two have hardly spent money to enjoy themselves. The only place where they spent a lot of money was to buy those equipment and storage equipment. Mawey listened to the names of the dishes ordered by the two, and then couldn't help but sigh in his heart. These dishes sounded not expensive compared to the money he spent on booking the restaurant. It was simply a drop in the bucket. At this time, Mawey couldn't help but glance at the restaurant manager in front of him and found that he was pretending to be ignorant and recording the names of the dishes. In fact, he must have been very happy in his heart. This money was really easy to make. Although Mawey has a lot of money, it doesn't mean that he can be taken advantage of and treated as a fool. So after Larry and Shegia finished ordering, he casually opened the menu and said to the restaurant manager, "Wellington steak 70% rare, slow-cooked tongue, Australian lobster, secret Dungeness crab, and give us 6 more boxes of 1982 Lafite." There is a minimum consumption requirement to book the entire floor of the restaurant. So when Mawey saw that the 1982 Lafite was only selling for a pitiful $800 at this time, he ordered 6 boxes in one go, which is 36 bottles of Lafite. Chapter 16 Basic Operations of the Tyrant. Anyway, if you can't finish it, you can take it back to Russia and store it in the wine cellar. 6 boxes, so many. Sorry, Mr. Mawey, our restaurant doesn't have so many bottles of Lafite. Can you use other equivalent red wines instead? The restaurant manager asked with some embarrassment. People who can work in such a high-end restaurant are all very quality. They are not like those brainless villains in novels, who jump out to step on the protagonist, embarrass the protagonist, and mock the protagonist. Okay. Mawey casually looked at the red wines on the menu and found that these precious red wines in later generations were really cheap in 2000. For example, the red wine of Chateau Petrus produced in 1986 only sold for $500 a bottle. The red wine of Chateau Mountain Rothschild produced in 1983 only sold for $600 a bottle. These world-class precious red wines will directly increase in price by 20 times when they are collected by 2018. So whether you drink them or collect them, they are very suitable. Seeing that Mawey spent $30,000 on a casual meal, seeing Larry and Shegia sitting in front of him, he couldn't help but feel the luxury of the rich again. $30,000 can almost buy 5% of their company's shares, or buy several more servers to increase the website's responsiveness. Mawey saw Larry and Shegia looking at him in a daze. So he had to shrug his shoulders and said to the two before the meal, "Why don't we talk about business?" Hearing the word business, Larry and Shigeya couldn't help but sit up straight, showing a look of listening carefully. "How much do you want me to invest? Give me a price," Maweli said with a faint smile. After he finished speaking, Larry and Shigeya couldn't help but look at each other. The market value of Google the week before was only $600,000. But the recent outbreak of the internet bubble crisis has caused the market value to decline every day, and it is estimated that it will soon fall to $500,000. So the two are also thinking about finding someone to invest or selling the company as soon as possible. At this time, Larry, who was sitting at the table, thought seriously for a long time and then asked Maweli carefully, "Mr. Maweli, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. As for the investment, I think $300,000. Is this amount okay?" The crisis broke out, and every internet company was in urgent need of financial support. As the president of the company, Larry also knew the current strength of his company, so he didn't dare to ask for $1 million or tens of millions of US. He only tried to ask Maweli for 30. After hearing this, Maweli helplessly reached out and supported his forehead. It would be better to talk about the investment of $300,000 on the phone. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have sent a car to pick him up at the airport. What about you? How much do you think I should invest? After supporting his forehead, Maweli turned his head and looked at Shigeya on the other side. All his actions and expressions just now were seen by Shigeya. So when he got to Shigeya's side, he saw the reason for Maweli's helplessness at a glance. So after pretending to think carefully, Shigeya said to Maweli with a calm expression, "Dear Mr. Maweli, I think the internet industry will be the future of the whole world. So, I think you can invest $150,000 When he first heard it, Maweli was quite looking forward to the other party to quote a larger number, such as 5 million or 10 million. Then he would have a lot to talk about. But what Maweli didn't expect was that the other party actually did not increase but decreased, and the money was getting less and less. This really made him not know what to say. Ahem. Why not ask this way? If I want to acquire the Google company in your hands, how much money do I need to pay? Originally, Maweli wanted to invest in shares. But the two Google CEOs in the early stage of entrepreneurship seemed to have no idea about the future of their company. So Maweli simply thought, just take over the company. Otherwise, how long will it take to invest this $300,000 or $150,000? You mean, buy our company? Larry asked Maweli in a daze. At this moment, he couldn't help but think of the time 6 months ago when Excite refused to buy his Google company. At that time, they offered $1 million, but the other party was too lazy to pay $750,000. The attitude was very unfriendly. Larry and Shegul exchanged glances and then hesitantly asked Maweli, $600,000. Do you think it's okay? As soon as they finished asking, Maweli, who was sitting in front of them, agreed without thinking, sure. Maweli clapped his hands. Then the butler Ivan, who had been quietly standing next to him, hurriedly came to Larry and Shegul with a black suitcase. Click. Butler Ivan put the black suitcase on the table and then opened the suitcase with both hands. Then he presented the pile of green $US in the box to Larry and Shegul. Hiss. When bundles of $100 exuding the fragrance of banknotes appeared in front of them, a whole box. Larry and Shegul, who were still in a state of surprise and did not react in time, suddenly felt as if their hearts had skipped a beat. It was a bit difficult to breathe. Hiss. Larry's hands began to tremble. He had never seen so many $US since he was a child. Shegul was the same. His eyes were almost straightened when he looked at the $US in the box. He even forgot to blink. Mr. Maweli, the $US in this box seemed to be more than 600,000. Larry counted the amount and found that it was far more than 600,000 $, and it seemed to be almost 1 million. After hearing this, Maweli smiled slightly and then said lightly, yes, the extra 600,000 $will be used as the annual salary for hiring the two of you. What do you think? Hearing that, Mawey actually offered a salary of $600,000 and asked the two to continue to work in the company. Larry and Shegul, who were sitting in front of him, were unexpectedly excited and then immediately nodded in agreement. Okay, I do. Me too. Google was founded for a year and a half, and after many ups and downs, it was sold for $600,000. Mawey's move was an annual salary of $600,000. This is really infuriating. If I had known this, I might as well have worked for someone from the beginning. Then sign the contract? Mawey raised his eyebrows and asked. He is not the kind of person who deliberately increases the acquisition price from $600,000 to $1.2 million just to show off. This is simply pretending to be a fool and being laughed at secretly. In the contract, Mawey added some commercial restrictions. For example, for a certain number of years, the other party shall not join a competitor company or establish a similar enterprise after leaving. This is a good way to avoid the risk of the two people changing jobs or creating Google brother, Google sister, Google uncle. Mawey, don't worry that he can't play with a large company like Google as a foreigner. After all, the first controlling shareholder of powerful internet companies like Tencent and Alibaba are also foreigners. For example, the largest shareholder of Alibaba is Japan's SoftBank. Tencent is South African newspaper. So even if there is interference, Mawey's status as the largest shareholder is set in stone. The key is that they dare not interfere too much, otherwise the matter will become a big deal, and the country's image and credibility will be lost, which is actually a case of losing the big picture for the small. Chapter 17. Rich people enjoy. Similarly, Mawey did not need to worry that the two founders would lose motivation and fail to develop Google into the future. Because Mawey himself had the knowledge and insight of a latecomer, it was impossible for the company to develop in a slanted way. He only needed his employees to follow his instructions. So he hired Larry and Shegul in turn. After all, they were the most suitable candidates. Under the temptation of Mawey's money, Larry and Shegul, who did not know how much they would achieve in the future, were signed by Mawey. This contract was almost a contract of sale for the two. And it was a contract of sale that could create $900 billion. After the contracts were signed, Mawey asked the butler to keep the two contracts of sale, and then asked the waiter to open a bottle of 1982 Lafite and pour it for the three people. Then Mawey raised his glass and said to Larry and Shegul with a smile, "Cheers, I wish us a happy cooperation." Happy cooperation. Ding. The high-footed glasses filled with Lafite made a crisp sound when they collided. Mawey listened to the pleasant voice, then raised his head and drank the red wine in the glass. Who would have thought that the giant company worth $900 billion in the previous life was taken over by him for $600,000 in this life? When Google becomes a world-renowned Fortune 500 company, I believe that what happened today will shock everyone. Because he was too happy, Mawey drank 3 glasses of red wine in one breath. And he had a big appetite and ate a whole Australian lobster, 2 secret treasure crabs, and 2 Wellington steaks. After finishing the meal, Mawey wiped his mouth directly with a napkin. Then, the butler Ivan, who was waiting on the side, quickly took out the bank card and asked the restaurant manager to come to settle the bill. Compared with Mawey's good mood, Shegul and Larry ate the whole meal in a distracted and absent-minded manner. The reason for their behavior was not that the restaurant food was not to their liking, nor was it that they felt lost after selling the company. It was the suitcase with $1.2 million between their seats that made them think hard about how to keep the money. The bank was closed now, so there was no place to save the money. If they kept it, they were born in it and were powerless. If they met criminals, all the money would be robbed. $1.2 million in cash was a huge sum of money for them. It was no exaggeration to say that they were willing to fight for it. After eating and drinking, Mawey looked at Larry and Shegul. He was also a grassroots person, and he saw the reason why the two were distracted at a glance. So Mawey smiled and shook his head, and then said to Larry and Shegul, "I have prepared a hotel room for you two. There is a safe in the room. You can deposit the money directly into the bank tomorrow morning. If you are still worried, you can pick 2 of my bodyguards and let them guard it all night. Maweli said very caringly. After hearing what he said, Larry and Shegoya, who were originally uneasy, felt relieved. They hurriedly thanked Maweli and said, "You're welcome, Mr. Maweli. A room is enough, thank you so much." Hearing the two people thanking him, Maweli, who was thicker than a city wall, couldn't even say you're welcome. Only he knew who should thank whom. Maweli's development strategy was to use American companies as a source of income, to nourish his military industry in Russia and private armed forces. That is, the security company he had conceived before. Then, he would continue to open branches all over the world, to strengthen this legal armed force. By then, he would be awesome. Those opponents would take a detour when they saw him. After dinner in the restaurant, Maweli returned to his hotel room. He was talking about business just now, so he didn't pay attention to the text messages on his mobile phone. When he was lying on the bed and turned on his phone, he found that Jennifer, who had occasionally texted with him recently, had sent him a message half an hour ago. "What are you doing?" Maweli thought briefly and then replied, "Just finished discussing business." 5 minutes later, Jennifer replied on his phone, "Are you tired?" At this time, Maweli was not next to his phone, but was taking a shower in the bathroom. He would not deliberately wait for messages from the opposite sex to affect his pace of life. After all, men should have this confidence. When Maweli finished taking a shower, 20 minutes had passed. He was wearing a white bathrobe, and his strong chest muscles were faintly visible under his collar. "Not bad." Maweli replied to the text message casually, then lazily lay on the soft big bed and turned on the 34-inch flat screen TV in front of the bed. Although LCD TVs appeared in 2000, they were not popular. The mainstream was still court monitors, that is, the kind of TV with a large back chassis. After watching for a while, it will get hot, and the heat will take a long time to fade. So the kids who used to watch TV secretly, when their parents were not at home at work, when their parents came back and touched the back of the TV, they would be beaten without explanation. About 10 minutes later, Maweli received a text message from Jennifer on his phone. "By the way, do you have time tomorrow night? Do you want to go to the bar?" Since they met at the party a few days ago, Jennifer still owed Maweli a meal. So she decided to ask Maweli to go to the bar tomorrow, just to fulfill the agreement. It happened that her two best friends were going with them. Bar. Sure. Maweli naturally had no reason to refuse the invitation of the rich daughter. "Okay, I'll send you the time and address later." The bar that Jennifer and her best friend were going to was not the mixed and smoky one as imagined. It was the Court Sky Bar, known as the City in the Sky. The bar is the most upscale bar in Washington, located on the top floor of the Court Hotel. The whole bar is semi-open air, where guests can listen to music, enjoy fine wine, and enjoy the starry night sky. At 9 o'clock the next night, Maweli arrived at the Court Sky Bar on time as agreed. The spacious Sky Bar was decorated very elegantly. The crystal clear floor standing crystal lamps emit a bright yellow dim light. It is neither dazzling nor dim. It makes the guests sitting in the bar very comfortable. The cool evening breeze in Washington in March blew softly on Maweli's face. The unusually clear night sky above his head was shining with countless beautiful stars. In the bar, the soft saxophone solo kept coming into Maweli's ears. It made his mood beautiful. At this time, Maweli looked at the foreign beauties drinking happily at the tables around the booths. He couldn't help but think to himself, rich people really know how to enjoy. Under the guidance of the bar waitress, Maweli came to a scenic spot on the south side. Then he met Jennifer, who had invited him over for a drink, and Jennifer's two best friends, Madison and Olivia. Chapter 18 Sky Bar. Both of them are celebrities in the Washington celebrity circle. Not only do they have a wealthy family, but they are also very beautiful and have very good figures. They are the focus of everyone wherever they go. Men admire their beauty and women envy their charm. Maweli, you are here? Sisters, let me introduce you. This is Mr. Maweli I just mentioned. Jennifer stood up with a smile. She wore a black off-shoulder hip skirt today and a pink thin cashmere coat on the outside, outlining her tall and charming figure. After listening to the introduction, Madison and Olivia looked at Maweli curiously. Then Madison, who was wearing a black backless evening dress, suddenly broke the news with a sly smile. "Oh, so this is Mr. Maweli?" Jennifer said that your song almost made her crazy. Yes, Jennifer is almost losing her mind. Olivia, who was sitting next to her, said in time. Hearing her bestie betraying herself right after she came up, Jennifer bit her lip in anger. If she had known, she would not have asked them to come to the bar. How can you be absent-minded? Don't talk nonsense. Jennifer may appear to be more aloof in front of strangers, but in front of friends or familiar people, she is still very open. Maweli looked at the three beauties in front of him. He didn't expect that the song he played casually at the beginning would make Jennifer like it so much. Maweli, come and sit down. Jennifer waved to Maweli and motioned him to sit down at the table. There were 2 bottles of French 1966 Dom Perigord champagne in the bar booth with dim lights. Looking at the streamlined black bottle, one can feel like drinking it at first glance. 1966 is a rare collection year of Dom Perigord champagne. 6 bottles of champagne were sold at a high price of $1.33 million at the Hong Kong auction in 2010. That is, an average of $210,000 per bottle. Well, Oklahoma. Maweli casually greeted the 3 people and then sat down in the booth. There was no pretentiousness or restraint. After he sat down, the bartender standing beside him took the initiative to pour champagne for him. When the deep golden champagne with bubbles was carefully poured into the highball glass by the waiter. I don't know if it's my illusion or the champagne is too fragrant. Maweli seemed to smell a rich aroma of caramel and maltose. Sir, please enjoy. After pouring the champagne, the waiter gently handed the glass to Maweli. At this time, Maweli put his nose close and couldn't help but sniff it a little. Then he found that it was not his illusion just now, but this French champagne king produced in 1966, which was really fragrant. He could even smell the milky aroma of toast, as well as the sweet aroma of black currants and candied fruits. Maweli, let me introduce you to these 2, my good girlfriends Madison and Olivia, both of whom are single at the moment. You know. Jennifer found an opportunity to tease her girlfriends as a small counterattack for betraying her just now. Madison and Olivia, who were sitting next to her, couldn't help but glance at Jennifer. At this time, the 2 raised their wine glasses on the table and then said to Maweli with a beautiful smile, Maweli, come and try this 1966 French champagne. Cheers. Cheers. Maweli raised the wine glass in his hand and then clinked glasses with the 3 beauties in front of him. He was too lazy to care about the little thoughts of women. Anyway, he came to the bar to relax and have fun. After clinking glasses, Maweli looked up and tasted the champagne. Then he suddenly understood that there was a reason why this champagne king was so expensive. Because even an amateur like him could taste the rich fruity aroma and the delicate and mellow taste of champagne. Above his head, the sky was constantly twinkling with stars, and the night view of Washington around the bar was full of lights and colors, which made Maweli feel a little drunk after just drinking a glass. Just as he was savoring the wine and enjoying the charming night, on the music stage in the center of the bar, a short-haired man in a tuxedo came to a black piano. Then he played and sang a classic English song for everyone. The man played the piano pretty well, but his singing talent was average, and he didn't perform the song very well. So when he finished playing and singing a song, Madison and Olivia, who were sitting in the booth, suddenly remembered something and said to Maweli, by the way, Maweli, Jennifer said that the song You Raise Me Up you played for her was sung by you? We didn't have a chance to listen to it. Why don't you go on stage and play a song for us to listen to? Is that okay? Hearing her bestie's suggestion, Jennifer also looked at Maweli with interest. From her eyes, it can be seen that Jennifer really wants to listen to Maweli's lip singing. That scene must be very intoxicating. But after hearing this, Maweli shook his head and said, forget it, I'm just here to drink today. Maweli is not the kind of man who listens to women. He still has his own ideas. Moreover, he is not very embarrassed to go on stage to sing in public. After all, he has never experienced it before. Go on stage and sing a song. Olivia and Madison used soft and sticky voices to act coquettishly to Maweli. Even Olivia simply stood up, sat next to Maweli, and stretched out her soft hand, pulled his arm and said, just go on stage and sing a song, okay? Under such a sugar-coated bullet, Maweli still smiled and shook his head slightly. At this time, Madison, who was sitting opposite, saw this and suddenly thought of a way to say to Mawey, how about this? Let's play a game. If you lose, you go on stage to sing a song. How about it? What if you win? Mawey asked without being fooled. If you win, one of the three of us will kiss you? How about it? Do you dare to come? Madison seductively provoked Mawey. At the same time, she glanced at Jennifer who was sitting next to her. Seeing someone provoking him in front of him, Mawey, as a man, naturally had no reason to back down. What game do you want to play? Roll the dice. One person once, the one with the highest score wins. In order to make the game fair, Madison and Mawey played dice alone, instead of the three of them rolling 3 times in a row, to compete with Mawey, which was too unfair. Okay, ladies first, Mawey said, taking a sip of champagne. Anyway, he didn't lose anything in this game. After hearing this, Madison asked the waiter for the dice in the bar, and then threw them on the table. 6 points. Wow, Madison, you are great, said her best friend Olivia with a happy expression. Chapter 19, Becoming a Hidden Rich Man. It's your turn. Madison looked at Mawey with a triumphant smile, ready to see how many points he would throw. But at this moment, Mawey did not pick up the dice on the table, but stood up and walked towards the music stage in the center of the bar. Madison and Olivia saw that Mawey was so straightforward, so they couldn't help but quietly communicate with Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer, I didn't expect your friend to have such a personality. Jennifer smiled and drank the champagne in the glass silently. Her mind was now fully focused on Mawey's upcoming performance. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Mawey, wearing a dark blue suit, walked onto the stage. Then he asked the waiter to bring a guitar, a high stool for playing guitar, and a microphone. Then he calmly sat on the high stool and reached out to adjust the position of the microphone in front of him. Hey, Jennifer, I remember the song you sent us was a piano version, right? Why don't you play the piano, but the guitar version? Do you want to play the guitar version? Madison and Olivia asked Jennifer in confusion. Maybe, let's give it a listen. Jennifer was looking forward to the guitar version of You Raise Me Up and what kind of freshness it would bring her. But just when the three thought that Mawey would play and sing You Raise Me Up, he plucked the strings and suddenly sang a beautiful song that the three had never heard before. When Your Legs Don't. He sang an English song that he liked very much in his previous life, called Thinking Out Loud. The lyrics translated into Chinese mean, when your legs are no longer as flexible as before, when I'm no longer as crazy as before. The melody of this song is very lyrical, very suitable for singing in such a bar environment. And the guitar playing part is not very difficult. With Mawey's guitar level of 6 months of practice in his previous life, he can completely control it. Oh my god, this song is so beautiful. How can it be so beautiful? Madison and Olivia felt like their ears were about to get pregnant when they listened to Mawey's singing. Coupled with the beautiful melody and moving lyrics of the song, it captured the hearts of many women present at once. Jennifer stared at Mawey on the stage without blinking. At this moment, she suddenly felt that Mawey was so dazzling. It was so dazzling that she could only see Mawey among so many people in the bar. The others were dim and lost in the crowd. When Mawey was holding a guitar and singing with his head down, there were 2 foreign beauties in the bar wearing hip skirts, high heels, and holding red wine in their hands, who came to the front of the stage. While drinking red wine, they enjoyed Mawey's singing at close range. It was clear from the look that the two were very interested in Mawey. It's not an exaggeration to say that they might even roll in the sheets. When Mawey finished singing a whole song, the whole bar, regardless of gender or location, burst into applause. It was very good to have such feedback. After all, the guests present were at least petty bourgeoisie, a group of people with taste. Mawey felt the praise of everyone and experienced the pleasure of being a star. At this time, a woman in red standing in front of the stage kept clapping. After Mawey walked off the stage, the woman in red suddenly smiled and came forward to introduce herself to him. Hello handsome guy, I just listened to the song you sang. It was really good. I'm from Warner Records. Are you interested in being a signed artist of my company? This is my business card. The woman in red said, took out a business card from her wallet and handed it to Mawey. No, thank you. Mawey directly rejected the other party's invitation. Compared with being a star who is in the spotlight, Maweli prefers to be low-key. So he prefers to be an invisible rich man, rather than a star known to everyone, or the richest man in the world. After hearing Maweli's refusal, the woman turned around and left. Maweli also returned to his original seat under the gaze of all the men and women in the audience. Before he could sit down, Madison and Olivia excitedly praised him. "Maweli, what's the name of the song you just sang? It's so beautiful that it makes me cry." "Yes, it's really beautiful." Maweli took a sip of champagne and replied, "The song is called Thinking Out Loud." When Maweli was talking, Jennifer, who would have chatted a few words, suddenly became silent and didn't speak a word. She drank the champagne in the glass silently until she was a little drunk on her face. During this time, Jennifer would look at Maweli from time to time, but there was no more verbal communication. When the two best friends next to him went to the bathroom to touch up their makeup one after another, the originally lively booth was left with only Jennifer and Maweli. At this time, Jennifer saw that the atmosphere was a little awkward, so she quickly stood up and said to Maweli, "I'll go to the dressing room to find them." "Yes." Maweli nodded and responded. But just as he responded, Jennifer staggered and stood up unsteadily, and then accidentally tripped over the table and fell into the air. Seeing this, the agile Maweli immediately stretched out his right hand. Then he used his strong arms to hug Jennifer, who was standing unsteadily, into his arms. This prevented her from falling and making a fool of herself. Well, actually, the previous part was just imagination. It only appears in movies or TV series. However, the real situation is that Jennifer fell down with a cry. Maweli just stepped forward and helped her up and then asked, "Are you okay?" "No, I'm fine." Such an embarrassing and shameful thing happened, which made Jennifer's beautiful face redder than when she was drinking just now. Even her ears were red and hot. Jennifer's fall could not be blamed on Maweli's slowness. After all, in reality, normal people don't react so quickly, especially after drinking. Maweli helped Jennifer up from the ground. Then he helped her back to the booth, motioning her to sit still and not run around. Jennifer bit her lips with a flushed face. From childhood to adulthood, she felt that she had never been so embarrassed. Suddenly she hated herself so much. Why did she stand up and go find her best friend? Maweli looked at Jennifer's hot face and suddenly found that the rich girl in front of him actually had a silly and cute side, and her temper seemed to be pretty good. She didn't get angry or lose her temper because of the embarrassment. Chapter 20 North American Auto Show. What are you two doing? It was really unfortunate. At this time, Madison and Olivia, who went to the bathroom to touch up their makeup, were just walking towards their seats. So they saw Maweli and Jennifer being intimate, and Jennifer's clothes were disheveled, and her face was red. "We don't explain. We understand." Madison didn't give Maweli a chance to explain, and then she directly put on her bag and prepared to create space for the two. Anyway, it was getting late, and the two wanted to go home now. "Then we'll go first. Don't be a light bulb. You two should be careful not to be too impulsive," Madison and Olivia said with a smirk. Then they waved to Maweli and Jennifer. Seeing the two besties leave in such a misunderstanding, Jennifer, whose left leg was a little hurt by the fall, wanted to chase them, but it was too late. She had to wrap her pink coat with a slightly drunk face. "Do you want me to take you home?" It was getting late, and Maweli was also going to go back to the hotel to rest. No need. My female bodyguard is downstairs. I can call her up." Jennifer took out her cell phone from her coat pocket, but found that the flip phone was broken in the fall. Maweli said nothing when he saw this. Instead, he went up to Jennifer and pulled her up from her seat, and then took her to the elevator like a gentleman. "I'll help you down, so you don't fall again." Maweli, who has lived to live, saw that Jennifer had some injuries just now. In addition, she was drunk and couldn't stand steadily. If she went downstairs by herself later, something might happen. So Maweli directly pulled Jennifer up domineeringly and sent her to the underground parking garage of the building in a manly manner and found her female bodyguard. "Thank you." Jennifer thanked Maweli in a delicate voice. "You're welcome. I'll be more careful next time." After Maweli finished speaking, he turned around and left without any hesitation. "Miss, are you okay?" The female bodyguard came forward to help her with concern. But at this moment, Jennifer's attention was all focused on Mawei's back as he left. She felt that the man in front of her gave her an indescribable thrill. This thrill was very strange, something she had never experienced before. "Thank you so much for last night." The next day, after Jennifer changed her phone, she sent a text message to Mawei as soon as possible. At this time, Mawei had already taken his Gulfstream G200 aircraft to Detroit to attend the North American International Auto Show, which opened this year. It is very pleasant to have a private jet. You can go wherever you want. And the flight schedule is also in line with your schedule, including communication equipment. You can also use it freely on private jets, such as satellite phones that cost several dollars a minute. It's a pity that there was no Wi-Fi in 2000, and it would not be popular until 2004. Master Mawei, there are still 15 minutes before the plane lands at Detroit Airport. The blonde stewardess with a good face came to Mawei and said in a slender figure, "Yeah, I see." Mawei looked at the blue sky and the city scenery outside the window and answered casually. When the Gulfstream G200 plane landed smoothly at the airport, Mawei did not rush to get off the plane, but waited for a while. Because the luxury car responsible for picking him up this time was not his Cadillac team. It was a local Detroit vehicle. After all, Washington and Detroit are far apart. Just as Mawei was sitting in the plane waiting, a Gulfstream G200 plane of the same model and color as his happened to land on the parking platform of Detroit Airport. Then a minute later, a wealthy American businessman with a big belly, wearing a loose white polo shirt, walked down from the plane with a white beauty in his arms. At this time, the blonde woman in the man's arms pointed to the man not far away and said, "Honey, that plane seems to be the same model as yours? What a coincidence." After hearing this, the American man took a puff of the cigar in his right hand, and then laughed and joked, "Haha, if I had known that so many people would buy this type of plane, I should have spent more money and bought a more expensive one. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing if I got on the wrong plane in the future." "Haha, honey, you are so humorous." The white woman laughed in the man's arms. It seemed that what the man said was really funny. However, just as the two were laughing and talking like this, suddenly, not far from the airport, 3 camouflaged military Hummers appeared, and a pure black Lincoln City Extended Edition luxury car. Then, solemnly and majestically, they drove straight towards Mawei's Gulfstream G200 plane. "Oh my god. Honey, the person sitting on that plane is not a big shot, right?" Seeing such a solemn scene, the blonde woman couldn't help but think of many things. The American businessman who was hugging her couldn't help swallowing his saliva and said in a daze, "I don't know, it should be." The businessman said and looked at the military Hummer and the extended Lincoln not far away. They were also sent to pick up cars at the airport, but his Mercedes-Benz team was instantly dimmed compared to Mawei's. Without comparison, there is no harm. When the team responsible for welcoming Mawei drove to the private plane in a well-trained manner. At this time, Mawei, wearing a black t-shirt and black trousers, slowly walked out of the G200 plane. The American businessman and the blonde woman not far away were secretly shocked. I wondered if he was an important figure in the country who came to visit Detroit. Just as the two were thinking about this, they saw an American man with deep wrinkles who came forward to greet Mawei in a capable and enthusiastic manner. "Hello, Mr. Mawei, long time no see. Welcome to Detroit." The American man in front of Mawei was wearing camouflage uniforms and black boots like soldiers. He was not tall or big, but his eyes were extremely sharp. At first glance, he looks very difficult to deal with. "Long time no see." Mawei forgot the other person's name for a moment. But it doesn't matter, because the American man in front of him is just a senior attendant sent by MPRI to greet Mawei. MPRI, the full name of which is Military Professional Resources, is currently the largest private military company in the United States. It is mainly responsible for the security of upper-class people, as well as some other security-related military support. To put it bluntly, it is similar to the American Blackwater Security Company. It's just that Blackwater at this time has only been established for 2 years, and the number of mercenaries is only a dozen. It can't compete with MPRI. Maweli looked at the M2 Browning large caliber heavy machine gun mounted on 3 military Hummers, with the black muzzle and the straight barrel. Maweli, who has an obsession with the military in his bones, couldn't help but feel his blood rushing. Imagine the scene of the M2HB heavy machine gun and super firepower suppression. Chapter 21. I know nothing about myself. Military career resource companies are allowed to have heavy weapons. However, in terms of restrictions on heavy weapons, only heavy machine guns are allowed at most. As for the Mk19-3 automatic grenade launcher and anti-tank missile on military Hummer vehicles, they are prohibited from being carried. It has to be said that Maweli's obsession with arms and destruction has been aroused again. This time, he felt that it was not something that could be easily suppressed by a big iron ball hitting a luxury house. Real guns and live ammunition are needed. Under the escort of bodyguards and security personnel, Maweli desirelessly sat in the Lincoln Town car in front of him. Then he told the driver to start the car and head to the Detroit North American Auto Show. At this time, he suddenly had an idea. That is, if he also opened a security company and then spent money to recruit those former US Marines, former US Navy SEALs, and former US Special Forces members. If we strengthen our own private armed forces and cooperate with the opening of Russia's military industry, then there will be a lot of potential. When thinking of this, Maweli couldn't stop thinking. He even wanted to spend money to recruit retired agents of the US Secret Service. That is, the special agents who protect the safety of the US president under Air Force One. Including in Russia, there are also very powerful special forces, such as Alpha and Signal Flag. It's a pity that, if the security company wants to reach this level, then in terms of relationships, it will naturally cost a lot. But fortunately, this is a parallel world, and many rules and regulations of the previous life may not be applicable here. Maybe Maweli can make it. Seeing the Hummer convoy escorting Lincoln, and leaving in a cloud of dust, the rich businessman and the blonde woman who were stupidly staying on the plane only thought of getting off the plane and taking a car to the hotel. Obviously, the two of them were joking about Maweli's G200 aircraft in the first 5 minutes. In the blink of an eye, their self-confidence was instantly hit, and the whole person seemed to be deflated and listless. With such a sturdy military Hummer leading the way, Maweli's journey can be said to be smooth all the way. Even if the American police saw it, they would not dare to stop the convoy easily, not to mention the ordinary vehicles driving on the road. Maweli sat in the extended version of Lincoln City car, enjoying the red wine and fruit poured for him by the butler. The slender luxury seats allow Maweli to lie down, and lie down comfortably. The classical music around his ears makes people feel happy. Maweli drank the red wine in the glass, and then looked out of the car casually through the window. Then he found that the lanes on the left and right sides of the Hummer convoy were always empty. It seemed that they were the only ones driving on the whole road. And on the opposite lane, vehicles would pass by quickly from time to time. In fact, what Maweli didn't see was that there were many cars driving behind his Hummer convoy. It's just that the military Hummer was blocking there, so they didn't dare to rush forward to overtake. They could only wait for Maweli's convoy to leave first. After all, the 3 M2HB heavy machine guns on the Hummer are no joke. Ordinary people would not have time to retreat after seeing them. Only a madman would dare to come up and provoke. About an hour later, Maweli arrived at the North American Auto Show in his cool motorcade. This year's auto show was delayed by 2 months compared to previous years. But this did not affect the popularity of the auto show at all. 2000 was a time node for the rapid development of industry and technology. Many bankrupt and reorganized luxury car brands have shined after 2000. For example, Bugatti, Lamborghini, and Bentley acquired by Volkswagen of Germany, and Rolls-Royce acquired by BMW, etc. When Maweli entered the auto show center under the escort of bodyguards, he found that in the major exhibition halls, except for the shiny new cars and car models, there were almost no tourists. The entire auto show center unexpectedly made people feel a little deserted. Maweli thought about it carefully, and then he suddenly realized that today was the first day of the North American Auto Show. It is also the so-called media open day. It is only open to the media and some invited wealthy people. As for the public tourists, they need to wait until the next day to visit. That's why it seems that there are so few people. The privileges of the rich are really everywhere. Maweli remembered that in his previous life, he was so crowded when he went to a car show, especially the super sports car exhibition hall that was only open in the afternoon. It was so crowded there. There were heads everywhere. If you want to take a photo, you have to raise your hands high. The key is that there is no good angle and position. Master, what car are you going to buy this time? Butler Ivan asked Maweli at the right time. Maweli thought about it seriously and then said to the butler with interest, buy a Porsche 911 GT first, then Jaguar XJ220, Aston Martin DB7, McLaren F1, Lamborghini Diablo. All these sports cars are on display at this auto show. Since he only spent $600,000 to buy Google, which will have market value of $900 billion in the future, so Maweli decided to reward himself well. He wanted to buy one of each of the 90s super sports cars reported above. Anyway, the price is not very expensive. About $3.5 million can get everything done. But just when Maweli said this, the butler who followed him suddenly showed an embarrassed expression and whispered to remind him that, Master, the cars you just mentioned are all in the garage of the Moscow mansion. You didn't forget them? At this time, Maweli looked at his nose and looked at his heart, pretending to be calm. Oh, I seem to remember it. Due to the loss of some memory, he knew nothing about his own strength. And he also heard from the butler that almost all the famous sports cars in the 1990s were parked in the Moscow mansion, and each sports car had more than one, at least two or more. In this way, when Maweli wanted to vent, he could choose a car that he didn't like and blow it up directly. This would not affect his collection. It seems that I really know nothing about myself. Maweli couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Then he brought his bodyguards to the Mercedes-Benz booth in Hall F. The reason was that he had most of the luxury cars in other booths. The only thing that is not in his garage is the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports car, which was just launched this year. The Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports car is a classic supercar jointly created by Mercedes-Benz and McLaren. It is equipped with a 5.5-liter V8 engine. With a supercharger, it can produce a maximum power of 626 horsepower at 6,500 revolutions. The maximum speed can reach 334 km per hour. As soon as Maweli entered the Mercedes-Benz booth, all his sights were deeply attracted by the two silver Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports cars parked on the booth. The streamlined and slender body, the simple front fender air radiator, the eye-catching side exhaust pipe, the compact tail and the gull-wing doors. Almost every detail is perfect. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Shooting Club. The streamlined and slender body, the simple front fender air radiator, the eye-catching side exhaust pipe, the compact tail and gull-wing doors. Almost every detail is perfect. Maweli couldn't help but come to the front of the sports car to appreciate this masterpiece up close. On the contrary, the long-legged car model standing next to the sports car became an eyesore. At this time, the beautiful female salesperson at the booth came forward with a smile and introduced, "Hello, sir. Welcome to the Mercedes-Benz booth. This is the latest Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports car. If you are interested, I can take you to test the car." The bright light shining from the top of the booth made the silver hardtop version of the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren in front of Maweli look very dazzling. "No need to test it. How much are these two cars in total?" Maweli asked the female salesperson in a light voice. "The sports cars at the auto show are sold out one by one. He doesn't want to be beaten to the punch by other local tyrants during the test drive. Sir, the total price of the two sports cars you asked about is $1.1 million. The saleswoman said to Maweli very enthusiastically. She saw that there were many bodyguards around Maweli, and they asked about the price two by two. It was obvious that he was very well known. "Okay, I'll buy it," Maweli said directly without thinking. It was as if he was buying vegetables in the market instead of buying a car at the auto show. Very casual. "Buy it? Then sir, I'll make a contract for you right away." The saleswoman thought that Mawey would consider it for a while. After all, in her opinion, $1.1 million is not a small amount. It can buy 4 Porsche 911s. But who knew that Mawey would decide to buy it so casually? He didn't even blink. This really surprised the saleswoman about his financial resources. She wondered which rich young man the white youth in front of her was, and he bought a sports car as easily as playing. In fact, what the saleswoman didn't know was that the reason why Mawey bought 2 Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren at a time was not because he had money, but nowhere to spend it. But deep in his heart, he began to want to ravage expensive luxury goods again. Sir, you spent a total of $1.1 million. Is it by credit card? When the saleswoman brought the contract without knowing it and asked Mawey, he just nodded slightly, and then the butler Ivan standing next to him took out Mawey's Centurion black gold card from his pocket. Then he went through the relevant procedures for his young master. Young master, sign here. After filling in the relevant information, the butler respectfully took the contract to Mawey and asked him to sign. Seeing Mawey's life, where everyone took care of everything, the saleswoman couldn't help but envy him in her heart. I really hope that one day I can be like Mawey. Then even if I die, I will die without regrets. Including the 2 car models standing next to the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren car. They also cast envious eyes at Mawey. From their eyes, it can be felt that if Mawey intends to chat up and ask for their phone numbers at this time, they will be willing to give it to them. There is no pretense of being reserved or deliberately aloof. After Mawey signed and swiped his card, the saleswoman took out 2 black signs from the counter with the words "This car has been sold. Please do not touch" written on them. Then she put the signs on the consoles of the 2 Mercedes-Benz SLR McLarens, indicating that the car has been sold to prevent others from taking a test ride. The next day, Mawey can send someone to pick up the car, or ask the auto show to deliver it to a designated location, but he needs to pay a small handling fee. Sir, do you want us to deliver one of the cars to this address? Falcon Shooting Club? Seeing that the 2 delivery addresses were different, the saleswoman confirmed with Mawey. The address is correct, just deliver it on time. After Mawey finished speaking, he took his bodyguards and left the auto show center. The reason why he asked the auto show to deliver the car to the Falcon Shooting Club was that in the United States, if you want to use heavy weapons such as heavy machine guns, you have to go to a shooting club to experience it. It is legal there, and you will not be caught. The next afternoon, when Mawey arrived at a small town in the suburbs of Detroit in a motorcade, he saw the Falcon Shooting Club, which is known as the largest machine gun shooting range in the United States and the holy land of heavy firepower guns. Generally speaking, ordinary shooting clubs are often opened indoors, allowing tourists to experience target shooting in a small area. They can't enjoy the excitement and pleasure of thousands of bullets per minute sweeping across the open space. Master, we are here. After the car stopped steadily in the parking lot, the butler Ivan respectfully woke up Mawey, who was taking a nap. Fortunately, the parking lot is located on the other side of the club, and the staff at the front door can't see it. Otherwise, Mawey's 3 military Hummers and the 3 M2 Browning machine guns mounted on the Hummers might make people mistakenly think that they are here to mess up the scene. How long will it take for the car to arrive? Mawey doesn't care about whether he will mess up the scene or not. His mind is now on the newly bought Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. The delivery driver called just now and said that it will be delivered in about a quarter of an hour. The housekeeper told Mawey the truth. Well, okay, I got it. Mawey clenched his fist with a little excitement. The destructive factor in his blood was already in an excited state. Then, he walked into the Falcon Shooting Club under the escort of the bodyguards. Prepare to see which guns will be used to shoot the Mercedes-Benz sports car later. When Mawey just walked into the shooting club, he saw that the shelves in the back row of the club were full of various guns and ammunition according to categories. Small caliber pistols were placed on the far right of the shelf. Desert Eagle, Colt M1911, Beretta M92, revolvers. Almost most of the popular pistols are available here. Next to the pistols are submachine guns. Among them, the very popular ones are MP5 submachine guns, Uzi submachine guns, AUG paratrooper submachine guns, etc. Mawey carefully looked at every weapon on the shelf. Especially the assault rifles and heavy machine guns on the left side of the shelf were the focus of his attention. For example, the M4 assault rifle, SCAR assault rifle, AWP sniper rifle, saw-light machine gun, W95 heavy machine gun, M2 Browning machine gun, etc. He wanted to try them all. Just as Mawey was standing in the store, looking at the guns, a slender blonde female coach, wearing a capable black coaching uniform, walked out of the office. The female coach's name is Emma. She is the ace coach of this shooting club, and also the daughter of the club owner. She just heard her father, who came in to get the contract, say that a local tyrant had booked the entire shooting event in the afternoon. Chapter 23 Meter-4 versus Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. So Emma was very curious about what this rich man looked like. Unexpectedly, when she walked out of the office, she found that he was quite handsome, and the first impression was very good. Emma stretched out her hand to comb her hair, then walked up to Mawey and said hello. Hey, handsome guy, do you like to play with big guns or small guns? Choose two. Women who play with guns are very hot and speak very directly, especially female coaches like Emma. Mawey smiled after hearing this, and then said to Emma, of course it's a big gun. Then he raised his right hand and selected the heavy machine guns on the shelf one by one. Emma raised her eyebrows unexpectedly after seeing this. When playing shooting in the club, the most expensive thing is not the private fee, but the bullet fee. For example, a 7.62x51mm bullet costs about $2. According to the double-barreled M3 machine gun, the speed of firing 2,000 rounds per minute can maximum out the credit card of ordinary people in a few minutes. Not to mention that, if you play for an afternoon, you can buy several cars. Mr. Mawey, please sign here. The club owner is a tall middle-aged man named Mike. Before customers enter the backfield to shoot, Mike needs to ensure that each customer signs an agreement not to shoot others with a gun. However, if someone is unfortunately shot with a gun at the shooting range, it cannot be blamed on the club. Mawey does not need to worry about his personal safety. First, he has booked the entire field, and second, there are so many Russian bodyguards around him who can fight back at critical moments and can also serve as human bulletproof vests. After signing, the boss Mike asked the idle coaches in the club to come out and move all the weapons selected by Mawey to the open space in the backfield. There, the club built an open shooting shed. Guests can put their weapons in front of the shooting table in the shed and then shoot at the targets on the open field at will. Every 30 minutes, the club will replace the new targets to prevent guests from finding the old targets too ugly. Accompanied by bodyguards and coach Emma, Mawey came to the open space in the backfield leisurely. At this time, he found that there was a barren slope behind the open space, so he didn't have to worry about shooting passers-by or animals when he shot. 5 minutes later, when the coaches put the heavy machine guns and assault rifles neatly into the shed, Emma, the coach standing next to him, asked Mawey with a smile, "Do you want to start now? Handsome, which gun do you want to try first?" Compared with the familiarity with various firearms, Emma believed that she knew more than Mawey's group of bodyguards. After all, she grew up among a pile of firearms since she was a child, and almost every weapon has been disassembled and assembled. Don't worry, wait a little longer. Mawey has been waiting for this moment for a long time, and he doesn't mind waiting for another 5 or 6 minutes. Save the first shooting of his trip to the United States for the upcoming Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. Emma looked at Mawey in confusion, not knowing why the weapons were all laid out, but the guests were reluctant to shoot. Is it because there are so many professional coaches watching outside the venue, so he feels burdened? Similar to her idea, there was a group of club coaches standing outside the shed watching the excitement. Anyway, the venue was reserved by Mawey in the afternoon, and they had nothing to do. It's okay, handsome. Which gun do you like? I can teach you how to play. Do you want to try the saw-light machine gun first? Emma asked Mawey in a persuasive manner. She has coached many men who are playing with guns for the first time. I believe that after getting addicted, Mawey will definitely love this feeling. However, just as Coach Emma was about to take Mawey to try the saw-light machine gun in front of him, Suddenly, a sound of wheels came from far and near in the relatively quiet backfield. Then, a pure black closed van slowly drove into everyone's field of vision. Emma and other club coaches showed puzzled expressions after seeing this situation. They couldn't understand why a truck appeared in the backfield of their club for no reason. The driver sitting in the truck saw that the scene was full of heavy weapons and ammunition, so his heart beat very fast. Even the car was driven with fear. At this time, the club owner Mike came out and gestured to the truck driver, signaling him to drive the car into the shooting range and then unload the goods. The driver nodded through the glass, and then his hands and feet were uncontrollable, and he didn't dare to move. It's not that he is too timid, but there are too many heavy weapons in front of him. He is afraid that, if he drives the car in, a group of people will shoot at him, and he will become a living target. So, after the driver was stiff in the car for 2 minutes, he was successfully replaced by Mawey's bodyguard. Then the bodyguard personally drove the truck into the shooting range, then pulled down the loading and unloading board, and prepared to unload the goods. Coach Emma looked at the scene in front of her in confusion. She really didn't know what Mawey wanted to do. Why did he come to the shooting club and call the truck to unload the goods? Did he think their targets were not exciting enough? I have to say that women's intuition is really accurate. Just as Emma was thinking this, the black-clad bodyguards who were unloading the goods suddenly unloaded a cool sports car made of pure silver from the truck. And looking at the model of the sports car, it seems to be the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports car that was launched this year. Oh my god. Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren? Am I seeing it right? At this time, a male coach recognized the model and couldn't help shouting. His eyes were full of surprise and astonishment. Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren? I remember that this car should be sold for at least more than $500,000, right? Why did they bring the car to our club? They are not going to use it as a target, right? Another male coach was shocked by his own question just halfway through his question. Who would use a sports car worth more than $500,000 as a gun target? Question mark? It's so crazy. Question mark? However, just when the coaches were in chaos, only the bodyguards drove the truck away from the shooting area. Only the silver Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports car was left in the field, lonely and dazzlingly parked in the field. Let's try the M4 assault rifle first. Seeing that everything was ready, Mawey smiled and said to Coach Emma. At this time, Emma was still staring at the sports car. She felt that what was happening in front of her was like an unrealistic dream, which was really incredible. After several seconds, Coach Emma finally recovered and quickly picked up the M4 rifle in front of her. Then, she taught Mawey how to shoot correctly. Mawey took the M4 rifle and found that the real gun was very heavy. The 4kg gun body plus the 0.8 kg 30 round magazine weighed 4.8 kilograms. Chapter 24 The Power of the M4 and M2 Browning Machine Guns. Mawey took the M4 rifle and found that the real gun was very heavy. A 4kg gun body plus a 4.4 kg 30 round magazine. That is 8.4 kilograms. It is almost equal to the weight of a small bag of rice. In the previous life, I only used the M4 carbine when playing CS games. Well, put on the earmuffs first, then spread your legs, put the butt of the gun against the shoulder socket, and after it is firmly pressed, the elbow is level with the shoulder, and the muzzle is at a 90-degree angle with the body. During the teaching process, Emma only thought about the consequences of the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren worth more than 500,000 yuan in front of her. Such a handsome and cool sports car, the wheels look new, and it has never been driven. It is going to be shot up like this. It is simply a bystander like her, who feels a little bit reluctant and even a little heartbroken. Including the group of coaches standing outside. At this time, like Emma, they really can't bear to see such a great sports car destroyed by the M4 assault rifle. However, people's hearts are sometimes very complicated. The coaches outside the field also had a little expectation in their hearts, hoping to see the exciting scene of luxury cars being shot into slag. After all, they had never seen it in reality. So, 8 seconds later, when Mawey, who was shouldering the M4 rifle, pulled the trigger, there was a bang sound of a gunshot. The 5.6mm caliber muzzle of the M4 rifle instantly shot out a strong flame. Almost at the same time, The Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports car parked 60 meters away was shot out of a small piece of car window glass. The bullet that Maweli just shot accurately penetrated the left and right doors of the Mercedes-Benz SLR sports car. The tempered glass of the car window shattered. The sturdy and brand new car window glass was like tofu dregs in front of the bullet. The huge impact brought by the metal bullet shattered a piece. The structure of tempered glass is different from that of ordinary glass. Although it is strong, it will shatter more severely when it encounters a strong impact. Oh my god. Coach Emma watched the sports car window shatter in front of her and suddenly felt that this world was too crazy. She has been teaching in the shooting club for many years, and she has never seen a guest like Maweli, who is so rich and willful that he uses a newly bought sports car as a target. However, just as she was amazed, Maweli, holding the M4 carbine, continued to pull the trigger. More than 10 bullets were fired in a row, and all the remaining windows of the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren were blown up. Bang, 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 bang. Huge gunshots continued to come from the muzzle of the M4. Emma and a group of coaches stared at Maweli in amazement, shooting the super sports car worth $550,000 into pieces. Bang, 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 until all 30 bullets of the M4 assault rifle were used up. Emma saw many ugly bullet holes left on the silver body of the Mercedes-Benz sports car. At this time, Maweli exhaled and put down the carbine. He felt his shoulder against the butt of the gun, and it was a little painful and numb. Sure enough, the recoil of a real gun is not to be underestimated. If it were an ordinary weak woman, she would probably get hurt after firing a shot. The smell of gunpowder after the burning of bullets and gunpowder filled Maweli's surroundings, which made all the cells in his body feel excited. The club coaches standing on the periphery looked at the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports car that was beaten half broken, and their faces were only surprised and shocked. Am I not seeing things? This Mercedes-Benz sports car worth more than 500,000 yuan was just scrapped like this? The club coach has seen many rich people come to play with guns, but he has never seen Maweli come to play with guns like this. $550,000 is equal to the bonus of each of them for more than 10 years. Maweli doesn't care what the group of coaches behind him think. After the warm-up with the M4 rifle just now, what he wants to play with most now is naturally the M2 Browning machine gun. The M2 Browning large caliber heavy machine gun is one of the equipment of the US Marine Corps and one of the 5 most ferocious heavy machine guns in the world. It often appears in movies and is mounted on fire positions, armored vehicles, tanks and other military vehicles. The bullet of this machine gun is 12.7 x 99mm, which is about the length of a palm, and belongs to large caliber ammunition. The power of firing a round is amazing. The price of each bullet is about $9. In other words, according to the maximum firing rate of the machine gun of 580 rounds/minute, Maweli plays for 1 minute, which is $5,200. The net weight of the M2 Browning machine gun is 38 kilograms, and it needs to be equipped with a 20 kilogram M3 tripod to fix and support its amazing recoils firing. Maweli walked up to the black machine and reached out to grab the 2 cylindrical handles behind it. The cold metal touch has a heavy texture that is difficult for ordinary people to control, which makes Maweli excited and can't help but smile. After Coach Emma finished explaining the use of the machine gun, Maweli couldn't wait to put on his explosion-proof glasses. Then he lowered his body, squinted his eyes and aimed. Then he pulled the trigger expectantly. Bang! Suddenly, a huge sound, with a fire that was stronger than the M4. It rushed out from the muzzle in an instant. Then it blasted the air with great force and hit the door of the silver Mercedes-Benz sports car at an extremely amazing speed. Bang! The silver car door hit by the bullet was instantly blasted into a small piece because it could not withstand the huge impact. This power is simply a ruthless crushing compared to the M4 assault rifle just now. Maweli looked at the broken car door, then he gritted his teeth and directly adjusted the semi-automatic mode of the M2 Browning machine gun to full automatic mode. In this way, he can keep shooting to his heart's content. Bang, 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 bang. The huge gunshots that pierced the eardrums continued to echo in the shooting shed. Thick, Choking smoke continued to emanate from the muzzle of the flaming machine gun. Emma, the coach standing next to Maweli, and the group of club coaches behind him watched Maweli destroy the Mercedes-Benz sports car in the distance piece by piece. The exquisite headlights were blown up by bullets. The shattered fragments were blown all over the ground. The tires next to it were not spared, and were ruthlessly blown up by bullets. Every time a bullet hit the car body, the Mercedes-Benz sports car would shake noticeably. This shaking was not like the swinging back and forth in the car. Instead, every time it was hit, a piece of the sports car would be blown through, and fragments would explode. 35 seconds later, a whole box of 250 rounds of 12.7x 99mm ammunition belts were easily used up by Maweli. He was not satisfied yet, so he immediately asked the bodyguard to change a new box, and then installed the ammunition belt, and continued to shoot. Bang, 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 bang. Maweli didn't know how long he had been shooting. Anyway, he just kept changing the ammunition after shooting one box, and one machine gun after shooting one, until the club owner Mike came up to him with an apologetic look on his face and said, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Maweli. We are out of stock of .50 ammunition in our store. How about you try some other machine guns?" Chapter 25. Heading to Silicon Valley. Maweli fired 18 boxes of bullets in one breath, which is a total of 4,500 rounds. The club owner was shocked. After all, the boss had never seen a rich guest like Maweli. Calculated at $9 per round, the price of Maweli's 18 boxes of bullets alone was as high as more than $40,000. Adding his Mercedes-Benz sports car target and the cost of booking the venue, the amount was almost more than $700,000. Looking at the Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports car that was blown beyond recognition in the distance, Maweli couldn't help but curl his lips, always feeling that something was missing. At this time, he suddenly remembered that in many movie shots, there are often scenes where the protagonist shoots at a car and then shoots it to explode. Such a classic scene. He didn't see it today. No wonder he always felt that something was missing. You, and you, go in. Maweli pointed at the bodyguards beside him, indicating that they should go into the shooting range immediately. The black-clad bodyguards he pointed out looked at each other blankly. For a moment, they thought the young master wanted them to go in and be shot by machine guns. So the bodyguards were so scared that they quickly shook their hands and said no. Seeing this, Maweli helplessly held his forehead. He would not be so crazy as to joke about human life, but he just observed the reason. He found that the fuel tank of the sports car was on the other side, so it would not explode, no matter how he shot. "What do you mean no? I'll let you go in, to ask you to turn the car in a different direction," Maweli said angrily in the tone of the original owner. None of these Russian bodyguards who followed him had good eyesight. However, fortunately, they were very loyal. After hearing the reason, they immediately ran into the shooting range one by one. Then they worked together to change the direction of the Mercedes-Benz sports car. Seeing the position of the fuel tank, which was now facing him, Maweli picked up a Desert Eagle on the shooting table. Then he aimed at the fuel tank of the Mercedes-Benz sports car very stylishly. Bang, bang, bang. He fired 3 shots at the fuel tank in a row. When he fired the 4th shot, the sparks from the bullet hitting the car body immediately ignited the leaking gasoline. Boom. A huge explosion sounded, breaking through the eardrums and reaching everyone. Almost at the same time, the Mercedes-Benz sports car that was originally parked on the ground was blown up into the air by the impact of the fuel tank explosion. The dazzling red blazing fire ignited the entire sports car. The interior of the car seats, the console, the steering wheel, all burned in the flames. They exuded a pungent burnt smell and were sent far away by the shock wave brought by the car explosion. People couldn't help but cover their mouths and noses when they smelled it. The scene was more tragic and real than the movie shots. It was definitely not something that could be restored by movie special effects or micro explosives. The explosion scene was so magnificent that the coaches of the clubs on the periphery couldn't help but take a step back. At this time, a male coach in the crowd quietly turned off the camera in his hand. He had just taken this camera out of the office. The video recorded the whole process of Maweli shooting and blowing up the sports car. When Mawey left with his bodyguards in a motorcade, the male coach who filmed the video converted the format of Mawey's video and uploaded it to a video website at the time. The title of the video was named, "Witness the Miracle." A rich man took a Desert Eagle and shot a Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren sports car with 4 shots. The video is 30 seconds long, and Mawey in the video was only photographed from behind, so there is no need to worry about his identity being exposed. The sports car explosion video was uploaded successfully. In just 15 minutes, the video was played 1,500 times. Almost every minute, more than 100 people watched it online. The netizens who watched the video left messages under the video in amazement, and soon flooded the message board. "Oh my god. This video is so cool. I thought it was a movie when I saw the title, but it's real. So cool. The man who shot the gun is so damn handsome. Oh my god. This guy is so rich. A Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren worth more than $500,000 was shot and exploded like this? So willful. Such a good sports car. If you don't want to drive it, you can let me drive it." Just when Mawey's video was spreading all over the internet, he had already taken a Hummer team to the Detroit airport and was about to take a private plane to Silicon Valley in California. There is the most advanced electronic industrial base in the world, and there is also the Google company he acquired 2 days ago. When Mawey arrived at the airport by car, the captain and the flight attendants had been waiting for a long time under the G200 private plane. "Hello, Master Mawey." Looking at the sincere greetings of the crew, Mawey couldn't help but feel again, it's great to be rich. Wherever you want to go, you can fly immediately. From Detroit to California, there are more than 4,000 kilometers, and the flight time is about 4.5 hours. So Mawey's dinner was solved on the plane. But this does not mean that he ate badly, because the Gulfstream G200 aircraft has a private kitchen. And on this trip, the butler prepared an Italian chef for Mawey. "Master Mawey, do you want to enjoy dinner?" After the plane flew to the stratosphere, 2 beautiful blonde stewardesses came to Mawey with silver plates in their hands. Mawey nodded casually, and then he saw the 2 stewardesses smiling and opening the silver lid of the plate in their hands. Suddenly, 2 fragrant Italian delicacies appeared in front of Mawey. Italian veal, Italian prawns, pan-fried pork chops, Italian pan-fried chicken breast. One classic delicacy after another was brought to the table by the stewardess. Then Mawey enjoyed it. After eating and drinking, Mawey took a nap on the plane. The 2 stewardesses who were in charge of taking care of him massaged his arms and shoulders, giving him the enjoyment of an emperor. After waking up, the plane was about to arrive at the California airport. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening. The bright moon was hanging high in the sky, and the lights on the airport parking platform were bright. "Master, everything you arranged has been loaded on the car, including the employees. They are waiting for you at the company." After the plane stopped, the butler arrived and said softly to Mawey. During this journey, Mawey was resting and enjoying himself, but the butler kept contacting the ground through the satellite phone on the plane to arrange various matters that Mawey had ordered. "Well, okay," Mawey said as he finished the red wine in his glass, and then got up and walked off the plane 40 minutes later, in an old office building outside Stanford University. Executive President Larry Pages and Sergey Marbury, wearing sophisticated suits and exquisite ties, were looking forward to Mawey's arrival. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.